Chapter 1828. 1828 Father 1828? Daughter, go. A single blade of grass can destroy the sun, moon, and stars. When Wang Xian saw the message of the 2 blades of grass, he was astonished. Star grass. A single blade of grass could destroy the sun, moon, and stars. How domineering and arrogant was this? This is a divine weapon. No, it seems to be even more powerful than a divine weapon. Wang Xian's eyes were burning with excitement. The 2 blades of grass could ignite a wisp of divine fire. This attack was too terrifying. Buzz! Wang Xian raised his dragon claw and grabbed at the 2 stalks of star grass. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, the 2 stalks of grass seemed to have mustered up a great amount of courage and quickly ran into the distance. Huh! Wang Xian was slightly puzzled. Then, he recalled the information behind the 2 stalks of star grass and realized that they had recognized him as their master. Could it be that there are creatures inside? Or perhaps there are treasures? He looked into the depths of the crack. The position inside was emitting a terrifying spiritual energy. Apart from the spiritual energy, there was also a refreshing fragrance. The fragrance was pleasant and refreshing. He could vaguely see some colorful flowers inside. Without any hesitation, he flew straight into the crack. Splash, splash. The crack was very deep and was at least 5,000 to 6,000 meters deep. As he got closer, Wang Xian could hear the sound of dripping water. The entire space was not very big. It was only 200 to 300 square meters. The surrounding beautiful flowers were emitting a refreshing fragrance. In the middle of the crack, there was a small pond. A root was poking out from the center of the ancient land of Jade Lake. At this moment, drops of spiritual liquid were dripping from the end of the root in the middle of the pond. In the middle of the pond, there was such a lotus flower. At this moment, the 2 star grass were suspended in the air above the lotus flower. They were emitting a bright and sharp light as they stared at Wang Xian. There are more treasures. When Wang Xian saw the huge lotus flower, an excited look appeared on his face. He moved his body and flew directly towards the lotus flower. Whoosh! Whoosh! When the 2 star grass saw Wang Xian flying over, a light flashed and an incomparably sharp light slashed towards him. You still dare to attack? When he saw the 2 star grasses attacking again, a hint of surprise appeared on Wang Xian's face. Trap! He moved his arm, and a grayish cage directly trapped the 2 star grasses. No matter how they attacked, they were unable to break the cage. These 2 star grasses seemed to be protecting something. Was it that lotus flower? Wang Xian thought to himself. With a wave of his arm, he grabbed the cage and flew to the sky above the lotus flower. However, when Wang Xian saw the situation inside the 2-meter-long lotus flower, his face stiffened slightly. 2 babies with pink faces, were lying in the middle of the lotus flower. The 2 babies looked to be about 6 to 7 months old. They were hugging a withered yellow branch and looked like they were sleeping soundly. The spiritual liquid in the pool was slowly injected into their bodies. Their bodies contained an incomparably majestic power. Divine blood? 2 girls. Wang Xian sized up the 2 baby girls, and his expression changed slightly. He thought that there would be treasures inside, but he didn't expect it to be 2 baby girls. The dragon eyes of the yin-yang and 5 elements sized up the 2 baby girls. Wang Xian's expression changed slightly. There's no life force. These are dead babies. His expression changed. He approached the huge lotus and placed his palm on one of the babies. Indeed, there was no life force. No matter how much spiritual energy was injected into the baby, it would not be revived. His gaze landed on the yellow branch that the 2 babies were hugging. God-striking branch. It had withered and died. This branch is even stronger than the star grass. Is it on the same level as the indestructible wood? When he saw the information on this branch, Wang Xian's eyes lit up with joy. He immediately took it over. Without any resistance, he snatched it away from the 2 babies. Whoosh! 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 Bang! 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 When he picked up the God-striking branch, the star grass that was trapped in the 5 elements cage by the side began to collide violently. It was as if they were protecting something. The owners of these 2 star grass should be these 2 baby girls, Wang Xian thought to himself as he looked at the god-striking branches in his hands. Buzz. A strong life force was emitted from the spot on his chest. A green light enveloped the god-striking branches. Treasure. Wang Xian was delighted when he saw the ancestral tree's reaction. Plants that could make the ancestral tree react had a heaven-defying function. The god-striking tree was slowly sucked into his chest. At the same time, he sensed that he was in the Dragon Palace's Dragon King Hall. The ancestral tree that had grown to a few hundred meters in size had a branch growing out from the branch below. The branch was filled with barbs and was extremely green like a whip. This branch was located below the branches of the endless wood and the evergreen tree. It seemed like its level was not as high as the endless wood. However, when this god-slaying branch appeared in the ancestral tree, the entire ancestral tree gave off a sharp feeling. At the same time, Ao Xingmu, who was preparing to ignite the divine fire, condense the divine spark, and lift the divine kingdom in the dragon transformation pool, suddenly trembled. His body began to emit a bright green light. The roots under his body were swept by a bright and sharp green light. As the green glow swept past, sharp barbs appeared on the roots under his body. Slowly, the barbs retracted as though they had not appeared. Ao Xingmu's entire body became even sharper. Buzz. In the ancient land of Jade Lake, Wang Xian moved his arm slightly, and a whip appeared in his hand. The whip looked very ordinary like a branch. With a move of his arm, a green glow flashed on the whip and barbs appeared. Wang Xian revealed a hint of surprise on his face. This god-striking branch was completely different from the eternal tree's thunder wood. This could be used in a battle. The power on it was a little strange. Bang bang bang. At this moment, an even stronger sound of collision was heard from the 5 elements cage. Wang Xian swept his gaze over and realized that the 2 star grass seemed to be very anxious. He looked at the 2 baby girls in the lotus flower and frowned again. The 2 baby girls' rosy bodies had turned colorless. Even their bodies seemed to have withered. What's going on? Are they going to die? Wang Xian was slightly surprised. He looked at the 2 baby girls and revealed a hesitant expression. Wang Xian was almost certain that these 2 baby girls were gods who had fallen in the ancient times. After the recovery of the spiritual energy, they were resurrecting. However, it was obvious that they were in trouble when they were resurrected. That was why they were about to die. When he took away the god-striking branches, the speed of death accelerated. I should save them. At the same time, I can learn some things about the starry sky and the ancient earth. Wang Xian thought to himself as he placed his hands on the 2 baby girls. Buzz. An endless stream of life force flowed towards the 2 baby girls from the position of his heart. Since the 2 baby girls needed to rely on the divine branches to resurrect themselves, then the ancestral tree would definitely be able to save them. When the ancestral tree's power entered their bodies, the 2 baby girls were once again ruddy, and a stream of life force overflowed from their bodies. Resurrected. Chapter 1829. 1829 Dad? Daughter? Down. Dad. Daddy. Dad. Daddy. In the ancient land of Jade Lake, when the 2 baby girls were revived and opened their eyes, their bright and untainted eyes saw Wang Xian. They let out crisp and melodious cries. Each one of them cried out, causing him to be completely dumbfounded. When the 2 of them cried out again, the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. Dad! What the fuck? They actually called me Dad. I have 2 daughters for no reason. Something's wrong. These 2 baby girls are obviously resurrected by the ancient gods. They might be much older than me. How could they call me Dad now? Moreover, the gods will have memories when they resurrect. What are you 2 little guys doing? Could it be that they lost their memories for some reason, or that their memories didn't recover? Wang Xian's face turned black as he looked at the 2 baby girls who were lying on the lotus. Those innocent eyes were staring at him. One of the little guys was even waving her limbs, as if she was very happy. What the fuck? What should I do? Is it urgent online? Wang Xian was caught off guard by the sudden addition of 2 daughters. He was not prepared to raise children. Otherwise he, Guan Shuqing, and the rest would have had children long ago. With his strength, it was still very easy for him to have a child. However, after consideration by him and the girls, he decided not to have a child for the time being. If Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and the rest were to have a child now, the child would have the strength of the insightful void tier, which was the second change of the divine dragon realm. However, if Wang Xian was able to reach the 9 changes of the divine dragon realm, and the girls were able to reach similar strength, their child would be able to possess the strength of the 5th change of the divine dragon realm, or even the 6th change of the divine dragon realm, as soon as it was born. Therefore, for the sake of their children's future, they decided to wait until they were stronger before having children. However, he never expected that they would have 2 daughters for no reason at all. I'm here to look for treasures, not to look for my daughters. Wang Xian felt a headache as he looked at the 2 little fellows. He had never felt such a headache, even when he met so many enemies on the Transcendence continent. Now that he had 2 more little fellows, he felt extremely uncomfortable. Wah! Suddenly, the naughty baby girl started crying when she saw that Wang Xian ignored her. This gave Wang Xian an even greater headache. He felt that his head was about to explode. Don't cry. Wang Xian stretched out his hand and touched the crying little fellow. Wah! However, what made him helpless was that the little fellow ignored him and continued to cry. With a dark expression, Wang Xian took out 2 hollow-level fruits from his interspatial ring. The 2 wood-type fruits contained a huge amount of energy. However, these 2 baby girls were not mortals, but the resurrection of fallen gods. They were not supported by the huge amount of energy at all. The 2 fruits were placed in front of them. The 2 little ones bit on them and realized that they could not break them. Wah! This was great. The 2 of them cried together. What the fuck? Wang Xian moved his palm and crushed the spirit fruits into liquid. The 2 little guys immediately stretched out their hands to wrap around his fingers and ate them in big mouthfuls. After the 2 spirit fruits were eaten, they blinked their eyes and looked at Wang Xian again. Foodie. Wang Xian took out 2 fruits of the 1st level of the demigod rank with a dark expression and crushed them into liquid. The 2 little fellows wrapped around his fingers and sucked continuously. When the 2 little fellows ate the 2 fruits of level 1 demigod, their bodies had obviously grown a lot bigger. It's alright. If they really grow little by little like ordinary children, I won't have the time to raise them. Wang Xian's dark expression finally heaved a sigh of relief. After eating the 2 fruits, the 2 little fellows were about the size of a 1-year-old child. Perhaps they had eaten their fill. They narrowed their eyes and closed them slowly. They were asleep. We can't just leave them here, right? Wang Xian watched the 2 little fellows fall asleep and turned his head to look at Ao Jian and Ao Qitian and the 2 draconids. The extremely cold Ao Jian, the extremely violent Ao Qitian, and the 2 draconids who used to be killers. Forget it, let me carry them. Wang Xian took out some soft metal from his interspatial ring helplessly and made 2 beautiful clothes for them. After helping them put them on speechlessly, Wang Xian carried them up. They were a 1-year-old child. Their bodies were not very small anymore. 1 in each hand was perfect. The 2 little ones sensed the friendly aura and bowed their heads toward him. Without mentioning anything else, the 2 little girls were extremely exquisite and beautiful. They were like porcelain dolls. They were indeed goddesses. The 2 of them were obviously wood-attributed gods. After Wang Xian saved them, coupled with the fact that he had the ancestral tree, the 2 girls were exceptionally friendly to him. They treated him as their father. Father, I'm not your father. I can't afford it either. Your real age is that of an old senior. Wang Xian mumbled as he held a porcelain doll in each hand. He looked at the star grass that was trapped at the side. The 2 star grass had quieted down and were suspended in the middle of the cage without moving. With a thought, the cage was released. The 2 star grass drew an arc in the sky and landed on their heads. Under the embellishment of the star grass, the two little fellows looked even cuter. To be able to possess two such mystical grass, it seems that the two of them weren't weak in the past. Wang Xian thought to himself. He took a glance at Ao Jian and Ao Qitian before walking straight out. Wang Xian walked out with the two ladies. Quick, kill this fellow and let us enter. When Wang Xian just came out, he heard the sounds of battle outside. More than 100 people were surrounding and attacking a tree demon at level 8 of the see-through realm. There were more than a dozen people lying on the ground. Clearly they were killed in the battle just now. They are out. At this moment, a young man who was bandaging his wounds by the side exclaimed when he saw Wang Xian and the rest walking out from inside. Whoosh! 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 Go to hell! An angry roar was heard. The last tree demon was killed. In an instant, everyone stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent in their eyes. When they saw Wang Xian carrying the two porcelain doll girls, they were slightly stunned. Why were there still two dolls? Could it be that they were carrying two children when they entered just now? Surround them. At this moment, a cold voice came from the mouth of an arrogant young man. The surrounding young and middle-aged men immediately surrounded Wang Xian. Everyone held their weapons and stared at them coldly. In the middle, two young men, a woman, and a middle-aged man stood proudly in the middle and swept their gaze across Wang Xian and the rest. Wang Xian swept his gaze across them, but there wasn't the slightest change in his expression. Do you want to pluck our fruits? Do you want to commit suicide? Or do you want me to help you? Chapter 1830. 1830. On the top of the 1830 Heaven's Pride Divine Sun, he was dressed in a yellow robe and had large divine characters tattooed on his chest. He had a handsome face and stared at Wang Xian with a cold expression. The cold voice came from his mouth. Standing beside him was the middle-aged demigod. On both sides of him was a beautiful woman holding a wooden staff, and a man dressed in bright colors. From the faint sounds they made when they entered, it could be deduced that the young man who spoke was the son of deity from the Ling Xiao treasured palace. The other woman was known as the Yao girl's heaven's favorite, while the other man was a flower with scars. He was also a heaven's favorite. Wang Xian, who was holding a girl in one hand, heard the son of deity's stern voice. His expression did not change at all. Hand over the treasures you obtained from inside immediately. The Heaven's Pride lady took 2 steps forward. Her eyes flickered as she stared at Wang Xian, and said coldly and arrogantly. With her perfect body and exquisite face, she was worthy of being a Heaven's Pride lady. You dare to snatch the opportunity from me, Hua Yuhen. TSK. The young man in gorgeous clothes played with the 2 beads in his hand as he stared at them indifferently. A son of deity and 2 Heaven's Pride experts. Their strength and reputation were well known in the entire eastern region. Out of the billions of people in the east, there were only 10 divine sons and 20 heaven's favorites. In the entire east, other than the powerhouses from the Lingxiao treasured palace, their strength could also be ranked among the top. Their fame was no less than those top celebrities. Divine sons and heaven's favorites. Wang Xian saw their arrogant expressions and swept them lightly. These divine sons and heaven's favorites were all young men who had obtained great opportunities in the ancient land. To be able to reach such a realm at such a young age, even if it was on the transcendental continent, they were still the top existences on the continent. Don't provoke me. Wang Xian swept his gaze across them indifferently and walked straight ahead. Ao Jian, Ao Qitian, and the rest also swept their gazes coldly. They did not put the so-called divine sons and heaven's favorites in their eyes at all. The divine sons of the 9 heavens, Hua Yuhen, and Yao Nu saw that the other party did not pay any attention to them. They were slightly stunned before their expressions turned cold. Do it, kill them. The divine sons of the 9 heavens shouted coldly. It's the divine sons. They dare to ignore our divine sons and heaven's favorites. They dare to barge in while we are killing the treant. They are simply courting death. Do it. Around them, hundreds of young and middle-aged men did not hesitate at all. Instantly, they brandished their weapons and slashed at Wang Xian and the rest. Buzz. Aochitian waved his arm. One by one, the swords pierced through everyone who was attacking them. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, hundreds of people froze. They slowly widened their eyes as disbelief appeared on their faces. It was as calm as the wind and clouds. How? How is this possible? More than a dozen of the experts at the profound void realm widened their eyes. They gently touched the back of their necks and fell to the ground. What? The expressions of the divine son of the ninth heaven, Hua Yuhen, and Yao Nu changed drastically when they saw the young man in golden clothing kill all their subordinates with a wave of his arm. The demigod expert standing beside the divine son of the ninth heaven also tensed up. His eyes were fixed on Ao Jian. We are the soaring heavens treasured palace. Which faction do you come from? The demigod expert stared at Ao Jian warily and asked with a frown. Dragon Palace. Ao Jian replied indifferently. He stretched out his arm and lightly slashed at the four people again. Not good. Divine Son, be careful. The demigod expert's expression changed abruptly when he saw Ao Jian's attack. He moved his palm, and a long spear appeared in his hand. He stabbed forward several thousand times in a second. Damn it, how dare you attack us? Heaven and earth, our Lingxiao treasured palace will definitely kill you. After the son of deity was stunned, he looked furious when he saw Ao Jian attack them again. He was the son of deity of Lingxiao treasured palace, a son of deity who had entered the god ascension role. He stood proudly above everyone. Even the disciples of Lingxiao treasured palace had to be respectful when they met him. Now a guy dared to attack him, making him extremely angry. In the 9 heavens and 10 lands, who dared to attack him? Oh no! When the demigod middle-aged man heard the divine son's words, his expression changed drastically. Fuck him, tsk. It's been a long time since someone dared to challenge me. Hua Yuhen, who was at the side, also waved his arm. A fan embroidered with various flowers and plants appeared in his hand. He waved his hand, and numerous thorns appeared in front of him. Clang! However, at this moment, Ao Jian waved his hand, and a 5-meter-long sharp sword condensed and slashed directly at them. The spear light emitted by the demigod middle-aged man's long sword was directly shattered by the resplendent sword light. Dharma idol, Lingxiao 1 point. When the demigod middle-aged man saw that his attack was easily shattered, he was shocked and immediately roared. At the front of the long spear, an incomparably resplendent golden glow appeared. The entire world seemed to be centered around that golden glow. Bang! However, when the golden sword landed on it, it was as though it was competing with the bright moon, as it was directly melted. The sharp sword attacked them once again. Son of deity, run! The middle-aged demigod hurriedly shouted. What? The expression of the son of deity of the 9 heavens, who was extremely arrogant and didn't put Wang Xian in his eyes, changed drastically. As the son of deity, he was listed on the god-sealing roll. The Lingxiao treasured palace immediately sent a demigod to protect him. This was in existence on the level of a demigod. No one on earth could be a match for a demigod. Light chaotic sword, frenzied sword. The expression of the son of deity of the 9 heavens also changed drastically as he attacked forward with his long swords. He hurriedly dodged to the side. Damn it, flower pattern fan attack. Hua Yuhen, who held the flower pattern fan in his hand, narrowed his eyes and hurriedly retreated. He didn't expect that the demigod expert beside the divine son of the 9th heaven wouldn't be able to block his attack. The expression of the heaven's proud woman beside him also changed drastically as she dodged to the side. Pooh! However, the moment they dodged, the longsword instantly landed on the demigod's body and easily killed him. Following that, the longsword continued to attack the 9th heaven divine son. Damn it, god ascension roll, save me. When the 9th heaven divine son saw that the demigod protecting him was directly killed, his expression was horrified. He immediately roared loudly. Buzz! A golden cloth appeared around him. The cloth slowly wrapped around him. Boom! The golden longsword landed on it with a muffled sound. The golden cloth blocked the attack of the golden sharp sword. The sharp sword disappeared, and the son of deity of the ninth heaven revealed a shocked expression. You are a demigod expert, and not an ordinary demigod. He stared at Ao Jian with his eyes wide open. His expression was unsightly as he roared. Clang, clang, clang. Ao Jian saw that his casual attack had actually been blocked. His gaze flickered as he stared at the golden cloth strip. He pulled out his long sword, and numerous sharp sword rays attacked at a terrifying speed. Pooh, pooh, pooh. This attack was incomparably terrifying. They didn't even hear the sound of the sword rays. Soon after, the sound of a sharp sword piercing through rang out. The expressions of the heavens favored Yao Nu and Hua Yuhen changed drastically. They stared blankly at the divine son of the ninth heaven. Chapter 1831. 1831 Under the body of the 1831 heaven's favorites. How is this possible? How dare you kill me? Our Lingxiao treasured palace won't let you off. We won't let you off. In the Jade Lake ancient land, the son of deity of the ninth heaven stared at his chest in a daze. 3 sharp swords pierced through the golden cloth around his body and pierced through his chest, causing him to stagger and stare at Ao Jian and the others with ashen faces. How? How is this possible? Jiu Tian is a divine son on the God Ascension board. Once you are on the God Ascension board, you will receive the protection of the God Ascension board. Even peak stage demigod experts would find it difficult to kill you. Hua Yuhen watched this scene with a face full of shock. His eyes were wide open and filled with fear. You actually dare to kill me, Lingxiao treasured palace. Yao Nu's face was pale as she retreated. She was filled with disbelief. Those who were able to become divine sons and enter the God Ascension list were all disciples that the Lingxiao treasured palace had specially nurtured. With a demigod expert protecting them closely, one could imagine how much the Lingxiao treasured palace valued them. Now this group of people actually dared to kill a divine son. Were they not afraid of the Lingxiao treasured palace's pursuit? That was a god from beyond the heavens. What shocked her even more was that the middle-aged swordsman was able to kill a demigod with a single strike and break through the God Ascension board's defense. It was simply terrifying. Since when had such an expert appeared in the east? Buzz! At the same time, in front of the vast Lingxiao treasure palace, a towering pillar stood in the sky over 100,000 meters in the sky. 3 words were written on the pillar, the God Sealing Roll. Each word emitted divine light and possessed mysterious and unfathomable power. Even on the ground, these 3 words could be clearly seen on the God Sealing Roll. Below the 3 horizontal words there were names. There were 20 to 30 names on it, and there was also a list of divine sons at the bottom. There were only 10 divine sons on the divine son roll. Each divine son could be said to be the most outstanding existence in the current era. The first few divine sons were all disciples who had descended with the Lingxiao treasured palace. At the 5th place was a name, 9 Heavens. 9 Heavens divine son, a peerless young genius from Earth, had entered the God Ascension roll and was conferred the title of divine son by the Lingxiao treasured palace. However, at this moment, the incomparably huge God Ascension list trembled slightly. The name that belonged to the son of deity of the 9 heavens slowly disappeared. The change in the God Ascension list instantly attracted the attention of the entire Lingxiao treasured palace. The son of deity of the 9 heavens is dead. The 9 heavens has fallen. He has the protection of a demigod and the God Ascension list. How could he have fallen? Could it be that he encountered a powerful creature in the ancient land? 9 heavens divine son has actually died. How is this possible? 9 heavens is the first disciple of the Lingxiao treasured palace to die. The entire Lingxiao treasured palace was shaken. However, on the ground, even if it was more than 100,000 meters tall, everyone could clearly see every name and every word on the God Ascension roll. When a name disappeared, it caused a huge shock. Divine sons were the most resplendent existences in this era. They appeared out of thin air like stars. They stood high above on the God Ascension board and were revered by everyone. However, a divine son's name had disappeared. This meant that a divine son might perish. The death of a divine son caused a huge uproar. If it wasn't for the death of a god not too long ago, the death of a divine son might have shaken the world. Even so, everyone was shocked. Gulp, don't kill me, please don't kill me. When Hua Yuhen saw the divine son of the ninth heaven lying on the ground, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his face was full of fear. After he said that, he hurriedly fled into the distance. No, no. Yao Nu retreated backward with a pale face. Stupid. Ao Jian looked at them indifferently. With a wave of his arm, two cold sharp swords directly attacked. No. Yao Nuan saw the sharp swords that instantly arrived in front of her, and her eyes were filled with despair. Her forehead was covered with cold sweat. Ever since she became a favored son of heaven, for the first time, she felt fear and despair. Wait! She closed her eyes with a face full of despair. However, at this moment a voice suddenly sounded. Crack! Crack! Following that, she heard the sound of a sharp sword breaking. She widened her eyes, and saw that the sharp sword in front of her had disappeared. It was panting heavily. Her chest that was heaving up and down made her look extremely agitated. Ah! At this moment, she heard a scream coming from the side. She widened her eyes and looked over immediately. The flower had a scar on it. It fell to the ground without any signs of life. Her heart trembled. She looked at Wang Xian, and the rest with a horrified expression. Her body was trembling slightly. I'll spare your life. Will you follow us in the future? Do you know how to coax children? It's fine even if you don't. Learn from us in the future. Come here. At this moment, she heard the young man, who was carrying two children, speaking to her. Yao Nu was slightly stunned. Her slightly frightened face was filled with astonishment. Didn't you hear that? Her body froze. At this moment, she heard the young man's slightly impatient voice again. At this moment, she sensed the extremely cold voice of the middle-aged swordsman beside the young man. He's here. Her heart trembled slightly as she walked over hurriedly. Hold them. Wang Xian stretched out both his hands and handed the two little guys to her. Yao Nu was a little stunned. She was the proud daughter of the heavens. She was revered by thousands of people and admired by countless people. It was no exaggeration to say that she was a goddess who stood high and mighty. Now, she was actually allowed to hold the little guys. This. However, she didn't dare to refuse. She stretched out her arms hurriedly with a face full of nervousness. Wah, daddy hug. However, at this moment, a little guy suddenly woke up. When he saw Wang Xian handing her over, he immediately cried out loudly. Drops of tears flowed out and landed on his arm. Wah. One of them cried while the other one, who was still asleep, was pleasantly surprised and started crying out loud. My great aunt, come here, let me hug you. Wang Xian felt that his ears were about to explode. He stretched his arms forward. However, when he stretched out his arms, his cries became even louder. It was as if there were hundreds of larks chirping beside his ears. One of them sounded pleasant, but a few hundred of them sounded uncomfortable. All right, don't cry. Wang Xian hugged her and comforted her. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Condense a milk bottle for them. Wang Xian immediately ordered Yao Nu. Oh. Yao Nu nodded her head in a flustered manner. When she saw the two girls who looked like porcelain dolls, the fear in her heart lessened by a lot. She moved the wooden staff in her hand, and two milk bottles slowly condensed. Wang Xian's heart stirred. Two spiritual fruits of the demigod level appeared in front of him. Under his control, the spiritual fruits were crushed into juice and entered the milk bottles. Here, you two ladies. Wang Xian thought of something and placed the two milk bottles beside their mouths. Gulp. Instinctively, the two little cuties opened their small mouths and wrapped them up. A pair of small hands grabbed them. Their eyes that were free of impurities were filled with happiness. Chapter 1832. 1832 and 1832. The Dragon King's nanny was in the city. The two little cuties grabbed the milk bottle and drank a few mouthfuls of spirit fruit juice. Then they laughed happily. One of the naughty little ones threw the milk bottle in his hand. Then, he grabbed Wang Xian's arm and was about to climb up his head. Looking at such a cute little girl, Wang Xian couldn't help but be overwhelmed by his father. After all, Wang Xian was already 35 or 36 years old. If he were on Earth in the past, his child might even be 10 years old. Looking at the two cute porcelain dolls, his heart couldn't help but soften. Sigh, looks like I'll have to be a wet nurse in the future. Wang Xian let the little girl grab his arm and crawl away. Even though the girl who was resurrected by the gods looked like she was only 1 year old now, her movements were very agile. She grabbed Wang Xian's hair and slowly rode on his neck. The corner of Wang Xian's mouth twitched as he pinched her cheeks lovingly. Giggle, giggle, giggle. The little one giggled. It was obvious that she was very happy. The other little one was lying in Wang Xian's arms, quietly wrapping the milk bottle. One was quiet while the other was mischievous. Let me give you a name. You shall be called Wang Kaier. And you shall be called Wang Huar. Huar Kaier, not bad. Wang Xian pinched the quiet little guy in his arms. With a wave of his arm, the milk bottle on the ground flew to Huar. Daddy, daddy, daddy. She took the milk bottle with one hand and grabbed Wang Xian's hair with the other hand. She kept screaming and kicking her legs. All right, don't be so naughty. Wang Xian touched his hair speechlessly. He was the dignified Dragon King, and now he was being ridden by two little kids. If the people from the supernatural continent knew about this, they would definitely be dumbfounded. Let's go out. As Wang Xian spoke, he walked toward the exit. This time, after entering the ancient land, he kept feeling that he had not obtained any treasures, and that he had suffered a huge loss. Yao Nu, who was standing at the side, looked at this scene with a shocked expression. What did she see? The young man in front of her directly crushed a demigod-level fruit into juice and fed it to the two children. This was a demigod-level spirit fruit. Even she was once able to become the favored daughter of the heavens because she obtained a demigod-level fruit. Now, this young man didn't even blink as he directly fed the two little girls demigod-level fruits. Most importantly, the two little girls didn't explode from the violent energy. This completely overturned her understanding. This group of people is dominated by this young man. The rest are all his subordinates. Soon she discovered a problem. Even the middle-aged swordsman who had attacked just now had to step back and stand by his side. Obviously, this young man was respected. In addition to casually taking out a demigod-level spirit fruit, Yao Nu knew that this young man in front of her was absolutely extraordinary. She hurriedly followed closely behind, but soon found that she couldn't keep up with their speed. At this time, a sharp sword appeared under her feet and flew toward the eastern exit with her at a loss. She was a proud daughter of heaven that was the focus of everyone's attention. Could it be that she would become a maid in the future? And she would have to serve two girls. Her mind was in chaos. However, when she thought of the encounter between the son of deity and Hua Wuhan, she felt lucky. If she were a man, she would probably be dead. They quickly flew toward the eastern entrance and soon arrived at the exit. Hua Er was riding on Wang Xian's neck. She held the milk bottle in one hand and his hair in the other as she looked around curiously. Kai Er, who was in her arms, also raised her head and looked at the world outside curiously. With a star grass on their heads, they looked adorable. When they reached the entrance, it was obvious that there were more people coming in and out. Soon, some people were surprised when they saw Wang Xian walking out with two babies. You're good, brother. You brought two babies with you when you entered the ancient land. Be careful. A few young men who were walking inside shouted at Wang Xian with smiles on their faces. Hee, it's nothing. Wang Xian smiled faintly when he heard their friendly reminder. The jade lady behind him immediately put on a veil. She didn't dare to let others know that she, the proud daughter of the heavens, had become a maid to help others coax their children. The name of the son of deity of the 9 heavens on the god sealing roll has disappeared. Not long ago, he seemed to have entered the ancient land of the Jade Lake. Could it be that he died in the ancient land? It seems that other than the son of deity of the 9th heaven, the heavens favored Yao Nu and Hua Yuhen have also entered. I wonder what terrifying existence the son of deity of the 9th heaven has encountered. Not long ago, the world mourned and a rainstorm poured down from the ocean. It's rumored that the sea god died. I don't know if it's true or not, but now, the son of deity has also died. Just as they walked out of the Jade Lake ancient land, all sorts of voices came from outside. The east gate of the ancient land of Jade Lake was even more bustling than the west gate. There were many streets in the surroundings, and there were all kinds of shops on both sides. There were many people gathered here. Currently, the most bustling place on earth was around the ancient land. The other first-tier cities and second-tier cities no longer existed. Wang Xian, Ao Jian, Ao Qitian, and the others walked straight ahead with the two kids. The two kids looked around. Boom. At this moment, a loud noise came from the front. A pet egg of a level 1 demigod. Oh my god. There's actually a monster pet egg of a level 1 demigod in the divine pet group. Oh my god. I heard that a few people from a powerful group appeared and wanted to take down this pet egg on the spot. All the powerhouses who received the news have come over. The divine pet group wouldn't sell it right now, right? They would definitely sell it. The pet group doesn't have a powerful force to protect this pet egg. Once some powerhouses get wind of it, they might come and snatch it away. After all, the news of the level 1 demigod pet has been known by others. Just as Wang Xian and the rest were walking out, loud noises could be heard. He looked ahead and saw many powerhouses flying over from the surrounding sky. There were also demonic beasts flying over with their proud sons. Among them, Wang Xian, who was at the see-through level, discovered 5 to 6 of them. According to his understanding during this period of time, a see-through level expert was already considered a top-notch expert on Earth. A see-through level expert could be comparable to a company that had a market value of hundreds of millions in the past. A proud son of heaven could be comparable to a company that had a market value of tens of billions. Earth's native see-through level experts were still rare existences. Wang Xian was not interested in the pet egg of a level 1 demigod. In his eyes, this item was not worth much. Let's go to Jiang City. Wang Xian did not want to delay any longer and flew straight into the sky. Everyone, please don't crowd around. Our pet group has indeed obtained a level 1 demigod pet. Please take a look. Right here, many of the bosses of the pet group have also rushed over. Our pet group cannot let everyone come here for nothing. The auction will be held immediately after 2 hours. Just as Wang Xian and the rest were flying into the sky, a voice came from the sky in front of them. A pet egg was floating in the air. It was only the size of a palm and was emitting a strong green glow. It was like an emerald that was emitting light. It was extremely mystical. In front of the pet egg, the 5 elders were looking around vigilantly. They were afraid that someone would come and snatch it. Wang Xian took a glance and prepared to fly into the distance. Daddy, that I want it. At this moment he suddenly felt his hair tightening. The tender voice of the flower could be heard from it. An ordinary pet egg. We don't want it. Daddy will make a good one for you in the future. Wang Xian said to the flower helplessly. Wawa, I want it, daddy. However, the cry of the flower immediately came from above his head. Following that, Wang Xian felt a warm current flowing into his neck. What the fuck? I peed. After all, she was a fallen goddess. How could she pee? Chapter 1833. 1833 and 1833, the Dragon King's nanny was in the city. Wang Xian's body was suspended in the sky stiffly as he felt the warm current on his neck. His face was as dark as it could be. He was the mighty Dragon King. Not only was he being peed on by a little girl, he was even peed on his neck. What was this? The little water had rushed into the Dragon King temple. He hurriedly carried the flowers down. With a move of his body, the warm current on his body dissipated immediately. Little girl, if you need to pee in the future, just let me know, okay? Wang Xian pretended to be serious as he shouted at her. Wa, I want that. However, the little girl didn't care about him at all. She kept crying. Wang Xian had a helpless look on his face. He took out a water-absorbing metal from his interspatial ring and gave it to the little girl as a diaper. Kyra is more obedient. Let me carry her first. I will tidy up the flowers first. Wang Xian was flustered as he looked at Kair, who was lying quietly in his arms, and gestured to the heaven's favorite Yao Nu beside him. Oh! Yao Nu nodded her head quickly. She reached out her hand and carefully carried Kair in her arms. At this moment, she was extremely astonished. For this young man in front of her to have such a powerful subordinate, his strength must be extremely terrifying. She didn't expect that he would be in such a sorry state because of the two little girls. Wah. Kair struggled and cried out unhappily when she saw Wang Xian leaving his embrace. Be good, we are here to look after Daddy, Yao Nu said hurriedly. Why are you so mischievous? You must be my little sister. Alright, stop crying. Daddy will buy that pet egg for you, alright? Wang Xian said speechlessly as he coaxed. The little fellow was indeed strange. After a few words of coaxing, he stopped crying. He stared at Wang Xian with his big, innocent eyes and started giggling. Faced with such a cute little fella, Wang Xian couldn't be angry at all. Just treat it as being a father in advance. Fuck, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have entered the ancient land of Jade Lake. He grumbled in his heart. Daddy, Kair, who was being carried by Yao Nu, saw Wang Xian tidying up the flowers. She stretched out her hand and shouted. Good. Wang Xian stretched out his hand and hugged Kair, holding a baby in each hand. Move. At this moment, a loud shout came from behind. Ha! Yao Nu looked over. Ao Jian, Ao Qitian, and the rest also turned their heads indifferently. Get out of the way. At the rear, more than 10 middle-aged old men riding demon beasts were rushing over. At the rear, 4 demon beasts were pulling a sedan and flying over aggressively. You want us to get out of the way? Seeing them rushing over, Yao Nu's face turned cold, and her aura rushed forward. Roar! The demonic beast that was charging toward them staggered slightly and trembled slightly. Ha! The people on the demonic beast were slightly shocked. Don't cause trouble. The pet egg is the most important thing. At this moment, a middle-aged voice came from the car behind them. It's the chairman. The dozen people in front hurriedly replied. Their eyes swept over Yao Nu, and their eyes were shining. Humph. Yao Nu stared at them and snorted in disdain. She was a proud daughter of the heavens and had an honorable status. In the past, when she went out, she was pulled by a demonic beast at the insightful void level. There were dozens of followers beside her. Now someone actually shouted at her and made way for her. Even if she was reduced to a prisoner, it was not something that an ordinary person could offend. Hee. Wang Xian looked at Yao Nu and smiled. Sir. Seeing that Wang Xian was looking at her, Yao Nu's expression changed slightly. Instantly, she became extremely nervous and lowered her head as she shouted. Yao Nu was extremely fearful of the group of people in front of her. They even dared to kill the son of deity from the Lingxiao treasure palace. If they didn't want their lives, they must be extremely confident. The chairman of the Tianling group is here personally. It's not just the Tianling group. Fenghua group and Longqi group are here as well. This is a well-known group. Sounds of shock could be heard from the surroundings. When the group of people arrived, the people in front of them immediately made way for them. Is there still an internet connection? Wang Xian listened to the voices around him and asked Yao Nu. Yes, sir. This is my mobile phone. What do you want to search for? Yao Nu immediately took out a mobile phone. It was a folding phone with a full screen and could be opened. When Wang Xian left Earth in the past, this kind of high-tech mobile phone had just come out. Check the current situation on Earth, such as factions and so on. Wang Xian said. Yes. The Tianshuan Network Group has established a forum. Almost everyone is using it now. There are many latest news in it. Yao Nu stood beside Wang Xian and opened the forum for him. Although she was surprised that Wang Xian didn't know about this matter, she didn't dare to ask further. Okay. Wang Xian nodded and looked at the forum on his phone. Heaven's Pride ranking, God Ascension ranking, Son of Deity, Ancient Land, Weapons, Elixirs, Pets. Group ranking. The latest news had shocked the world. There was a huge change in the Pacific Ocean, and it was suspected that the sea god had fallen. There were all kinds of news, but it was somewhat similar to the previous Jianghu Forum. Daddy. At this moment, the extremely mischievous flower started to move in his arms again. Wang Xian was helpless, and could only coax the little guy first. What are you doing? He pinched the little fella's face helplessly. Yeah. She shouted and reached out her little hand to grab his clothes. She climbed up his neck once again, wanting to pee on his neck. Wang Xian reached out his hand to grab her, and placed her on his neck. He wanted to be a good nanny. Giddy up. The little fella saw someone riding on a Pegasus in front, and was shouting softly. He also imitated her and grabbed Wang Xian's hair, making a tender sound. Daddy, giddy up. Cluck, cluck, cluck. Cheerful voice from her mouth. Wang Xian let her grasp. Let's go. Wang Xian said to the flowers. Want to leave quickly, too shameful. No, whoa, I want that. Okay. We'll wait here and buy it for you later. Wang Xian said helplessly. It seems that this little guy is interested in that pet egg. More and more people were gathered around. One by one, the group stood at the front. Boom, boom, boom. I'm here. Can the pet auction begin now? Not long after, an extremely cool supercar let out a rumbling sound. From a distance, it was like a bolt of lightning as it drove towards them. The rumbling sound attracted the attention of many people. A young man with a body full of golden light came out from the car. He held a beautiful woman in his arms, as he looked at the pet egg in the sky with a flash of passion in his eyes. He laughed loudly as he asked. Oh, young Master Jean of the Spirit Vein Group. I didn't expect him to actually come. The Spirit Vein Group is a top-tier group. They are famous for being rich. The arrival of the young man attracted the attention of the surrounding people. The company's chairman and higher-ups who had rushed over also slightly frowned when they saw the arrival of the young man. Chapter 1834. 1834 and 1834. The Dragon King's father-in-law was in the city. Jin Yue, a very common name, the eldest son of the Spirit Vein Group. The Spirit Vein Group was quite lucky. They found a spirit vein, and used 5 years to rise up and establish the now famous Spirit Vein Group. The Spirit Vein Group is famous for being rich and recruiting many experts. They have a good relationship with the divine son of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. Jin Yue has the strength of a 5th-level void interpretation. He is highly regarded by outsiders and has the chance to become a heaven's favorite. When the Yao girl saw the arrival of the young man, she revealed a slightly solemn expression. Although this fellow's strength was not as good as hers, he had a strong background. Sir, the Spirit Vein Group is famous for being rich. If you want to buy that pet egg, he is a strong and powerful opponent. Yao Nu continued to remind Wang Xian while trying to please him. A strong and powerful opponent. Wang Xian smiled when he heard her words. If it weren't for Hua or who wanted this pet egg, he wouldn't even take a second look at her. I didn't expect young Master Jean to be here as well. Young Master Jean is really lucky. It wasn't easy for us to get our hands on this demigod level, would attribute demonic beast pet egg. Above them, the higher-ups of the God Pet Group were delighted when they saw the young master of the Spirit Vein Group arrive. They had wanted to incubate the demigod-level pet egg secretly, but they didn't expect the news to leak out. With the strength of their God Pet Group, they didn't have the strength to keep the pet. After the news leaked out, they were very scared. If an expert came to snatch it, they couldn't do anything about it. They had no choice but to sell it quickly. Now they only hoped to sell it at a good price. Seeing the Spirit Vein Group's eldest young master arrive, a trace of joy appeared on his face. At least the price of this pet wouldn't be too low. Haha, since I'm here, then tell me a price. I'll take it. Jin Yue laughed arrogantly and shouted at them. Young Master Jin, you might not be able to take this pet egg with you. As soon as Jin Yue finished his words, an old man's voice came from the side. The old man held the dragon-headed walking stick and said expressionlessly, Old man Tian is right. Since it's being auctioned, the one with the highest price will get it. A middle-aged man beside him said faintly, Haha, let's start the bidding. Everyone from the Pet God Corporation, let's begin. Some things are hard to come by in the future, if you don't have them in the beginning. Our Spirit Vein Corporation will definitely take this pet egg. Jin Yue laughed loudly and shouted with confidence. He leaned on the sports car, held the beauty beside him, and lit a cigarette. He looked extremely handsome. Hee alright. Since young Master Jin has said that it's time to start, then we won't wait any longer. I'm sure everyone knows the value of a demigod rank 1 divine pet. It's completely priceless. Now, the auction price of 100 million high-grade spirit stones will begin. The price cannot be lower than 1 million high-grade spirit stones each time. An old man from the divine pet group shouted with a smile on his face. Hiss, 100 million upper-grade spirit stones. Oh my god, that's 100 million upper-grade spirit stones. It's really expensive. However, 100 million upper-grade spirit stones is about the same. After all, if we nurture him, he will be a demigod-level powerhouse. Nurturing him will also cost a lot of resources. It seems that we can only watch those few groups fight for it. Tens of thousands of people gathered in the surrounding area. When they heard the auction price, their faces were filled with shock. Haha, 100 million. Everyone, please consider it carefully. Raising a Tier 1 demigod pet will require more than 100 million high-grade spirit stones. Jin Yue immediately raised his hand and shouted. Young Master Jin, you don't have to worry about that. Our Tianling group still has the ability. 101 million. The chairman of the Tianling group, who spoke just now, shouted. 102 million. Fengqi group, 102 million. Do you have any more? 103 million. 104 million. Haha, too slow. 110 million. This divine pet, our Spirit Vein group will definitely take it. Young Master Jin bids 110 million. 110 million. Do you have any more? The auction began. 4 or 5 groups competed with Jin Yue one by one, and the prices rapidly increased. Everyone's breathing quickened as they watched the auction. With an increase of 1000, 000, 1000 high-grade spirit stones, the current 1 million high-grade spirit stones could not be compared to 1 million renminbi. If measured in terms of money, the value of 1 million high-grade spirit stones was equivalent to 100 million renminbi in the past. The starting price of a demigod first-grade pet egg was equivalent to 10 million RMB in the past. This is crazy. These big corporations are really willing to risk their lives for this pet egg. Young Master Jin is obviously more confident now. Spirit Vein Corporation is too rich. I guess this pet egg will be obtained by Spirit Vein Corporation. Young Master Jin is too confident. The surrounding voices of discussion could be heard. The auction continued, and no one dared to speak loudly. The entire surroundings seemed to be quiet. Daddy, I want it. At this moment, a clear and melodious voice sounded. In the midst of the intense auction, it seemed to be somewhat clear. Some people looked over and saw a young girl riding on top of a young man. They smiled. Little cutie, did you hear what young Master Jin said just now? Some things aren't there when they were born. It will be very difficult to obtain them in the future. A girl turned around and said with a smile when she saw the cute flower. 200 million upper-grade spirit stones. Who else dares to fight with my Spirit Vein group? Haha, this pet will definitely belong to me, Jin Yue. In the future, it will follow me to conquer the world and become a heaven's favorite. At this moment, Jin Yue's proud voice came from the front. He held a cigarette in his mouth and glanced at a few company chairmen and executives who looked embarrassed. Then he said with a loud laugh. A few of the company's upper echelons shook their heads helplessly. 200 million high-grade spirit stones. The Spirit Vein group was too rich. When the few upper echelons of the Pet God group saw this scene, they were certain that this demigod pet was going to fall into the hands of the Spirit Vein group. Everyone around looked at Jin Yue with envy. Dad, I want that. Huar heard the girl's words and saw that the pet egg was about to be bought. She blinked her eyes and grabbed Wang Xian's hair with all her might as she shouted. It must be said that this little fellow's voice was very loud. Okay, Daddy will buy it for you now, Wang Xian said immediately and grabbed her little feet helplessly. Haha, interesting. I don't have time to coax you guys here. Give me the pet egg. Jin Yue heard their words and looked towards Wang Xian. Looking at the little girl who was riding on the neck of a young man, he laughed out loud. He stood up and announced with a loud laugh. His arrogant tone made the upper echelons of the companies look a little embarrassed. Was he comparing the auction earlier to coaxing them? Coaxing a child? Chapter 1835. 1835 Was the 1835 pet egg delicious? Let's go. This young Master Jin is so confident. Just now, he was competing with the higher-ups of several large corporations. He actually said that he was coaxing a child. Now, I just want to know how much money the Spirit Vein Corporation has. With such confidence, even if a Divine Son came, he wouldn't be able to compete with them. Divine Son? The Divine Son is just very talented and powerful. In terms of wealth, he's far inferior to the Spirit Vein Corporation. Perhaps only those powerful demigods in the Lingxiao Treasured Palace can compete with the Spirit Vein Corporation. Hearing young Master Jin's arrogant words, everyone around was shocked. 200 million upper-grade spirit stones. If no one raises the price, then this pet egg will belong to young Master Jin. The senior executives of the God Pet Corporation were also very happy with the sale of 200 million upper-grade spirit stones. They shouted at him with smiles on their faces. Haha, although it doesn't match my attributes very well, the supporting functions of wood-type demonic beasts are very powerful. Young Master Jin stared at the pet egg with burning eyes as he said with a loud laugh. To be able to obtain a demigod rank 1 pet egg today was a great opportunity for him. 250 million. However, at this moment a voice suddenly sounded from behind. 250 million. When these 5 words entered everyone's ears, young Master Jin's excited expression instantly froze. He suddenly turned his head. Everyone around also turned their heads in shock. When they saw the young man with a girl in his arms and a girl riding on his neck, everyone was slightly stunned again. Just now, the girl riding on the young man's neck said that she wanted a pet egg, but young Master Jin took over and said that he would coax the child to ridicule the big corporations. Now, the father of the child actually offered 250 million. This, kid, are you coaxing the child? You have to take responsibility for what you said. Jin Yue's expression changed slightly. He stared coldly at Wang Xian and growled in an embarrassed manner. It's not like you coax a child like this. Wang Xian glanced at Jin Yue indifferently and said, What? This, he really wants to buy it? Who is this person? 250 million. Only a handful of people can afford so many spirit stones. You must be joking. Who is he? Haven't you seen him before? Everyone around was slightly stunned. They looked at Wang Xian with astonishment. This young man, you are not joking, right? A few higher-ups of the pet group looked at Wang Xian in astonishment. They pursed their lips and asked. Wow! Wang Xian took out an interspatial ring. He waved it gently and threw it directly to the higher-ups of the pet group. Pa! An old man stretched out his hand in astonishment and took it. When he saw the spirit stones inside, his eyes widened in shock. The entire interspatial ring had an area of more than 10,000 cubic meters. This was the first time he had seen such a huge interspatial ring. And inside the interspatial ring were countless spirit stones. There were at least 200 million spirit stones inside. It was estimated that there were 2 billion spirit stones inside. Gulp! The old man swallowed a mouthful of saliva as his fingers trembled. Young master, are you sure you want to buy it for 250 million spirit stones? The old man's expression changed drastically. If they could get their hands on the spirit stones inside, they would definitely be able to become one of the top powers on Earth. Who was this young man? What was his identity? How could he possibly take out so many spirit stones? Heavens! And he actually dared to show his interspatial ring to him. Was it because he was confident? He couldn't afford to offend him. He immediately dispelled the greed in his heart and straightened his expression. Of course. Do you have the qualifications? Wuxia nodded his head faintly. Yes, of course, young master has the qualifications. Your interspatial ring. The elder from the God Pet group nodded his head hurriedly and replied. His arm trembled slightly as he returned the interspatial ring to Wuxia. 250 million. Young Master Jin, do you want to continue the bidding? The old man looked at Jin Yue and asked. What? Jin Yue's expression changed drastically. His expression turned gloomy as he asked. Does he have the ability? Young Master Jin, I have already verified that this young master has the ability. The old man nodded his head heavily. His eyes sparkled as he looked at Wuxia with some respect. If this pet, and that young man wanted it, there was nothing that young Master Jin could do about it. When the senior executives of the God Pet group saw the old man's expression, their faces were filled with astonishment. My God, does this young man really have the qualifications? What is his identity? Good heavens, 250 million. Is he buying it for his daughter? This is too extravagant. If his daughter wants a pet, he will buy it for her. This is the pinnacle of his life. What is the identity of this young man? Everyone was shocked. They thought that this young man was trying to coax a child. They didn't expect that he would actually buy it. This had completely overturned their understanding. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva in unison. 260 million. Jin Yue's expression changed drastically. He gritted his teeth and shouted loudly. 300 million. As soon as he finished his sentence, Wuxia's soft voice sounded as though 300 million was nothing in front of him. Indeed, it was nothing. Even though the Transcendence continent was dominated by middle-grade spirit stones, there were still quite a number of upper-grade spirit stones. Currently, the number of upper-grade spirit stones in the entire Transcendence continent was more than 10 billion or 100 billion. Wuxia had brought along at most 1% of them, which was equivalent to a few billion upper-grade spirit stones. 300 million, and he directly increased it by 40 million. Who is he? Is he the higher-ups of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace? Oh my God, this pet egg of the first-level demigod is not worth 300 million at all. When everyone heard Wuxia's voice again, they opened their mouths slightly. Is he fucking a tycoon? When Jin Yue heard the number of 300 million, his expression changed drastically. He never expected such a person to appear out of nowhere. 300 million to buy a pet egg for his daughter. There are indeed some things that are hard to come by in the future. This little doll is so blessed. The lady who spoke to Wuxia and the rest just now looked at him in a daze. What a hidden card. Excuse me, young Master Jin, would you like to raise the price? At this moment, the most excited people were the upper echelons of the God Pet group. This auction was a huge profit. Jin Yue's expression changed when he heard the God Pet group's words. 300 million, a total of 300 million. Even if their group wanted to take out 300 million in one go, they would still have to consider it. Congratulations, young master. The first-level demigod wood-type demon beast pet egg belongs to you now. Hehe, your daughter seems to be wood-type as well. It's a good opportunity for her to grow up together with your beloved daughter. When the higher-ups of the pet group saw that Jin Yue remained silent with a gloomy face, they knew that he would not raise the price anymore. With such a price, no one would raise the price anymore. The elder from the pet group held the pet egg respectfully and walked towards Wuxia. Chapter 1836. 1836. How is the 1836 pet egg? Next. It's a demigod tier 1 pet. To have a demigod tier 1 pet at birth is really enviable. When that girl grows up, her pet will also reach the peak. This is equivalent to the treatment of a divine son. God-level tycoon, really God-level tycoon. I wonder what identity this God-level tycoon has. In front of the Jade Lake ancient land, everyone's faces were filled with shock and envy as they looked at the higher-ups of the God Pet group respectfully sending the pet egg over. The little girl asked for the pet egg, and her father immediately bought it. How could such a powerful father not be envied? Young master, here you are. A wood elemental pet will definitely be able to accompany your daughter to grow up quickly. The elder of the pet group handed it over respectfully and said with a smile. Okay. Wuxia nodded and took the pet egg under everyone's envious gaze. The pet egg wasn't very big. It was about the size of an adult's palm. And it wasn't very heavy either. It was emitting a green glow, just like an emerald. Here, flower. Wuxia handed the pet egg to the little guy on top of his head. Giggle, giggle, giggle. The little guy was ecstatic when he saw the pet egg that was emitting a bright glow. She took the pet egg with both of her hands. Following that, she did something that shocked everyone. Crack, crack. She held the pet egg and opened her mouth to bite it. However, she couldn't break the hard pet egg at all. Yeah, I can't bite it. I want to eat it. Seeing that she couldn't bite it, the little guy angrily bit it again with his mouth. Hee hee, young master, your daughter is so cute. The old man from the god pet group said with a smile when he saw the flower. The porcelain doll-like girl was holding a demigod-level pet, and saying that she was going to bite it and eat it. Her appearance was indeed quite cute. This little doll is so cute, it's simply too cute. Haha, how interesting, she actually wants to bite and eat it. She's really a little foodie. This is a pet egg worth 300 million high-grade spirit stones. And she actually wants to eat it. This little girl is just like a porcelain doll. She puts everything into her mouth. Everyone around had a kind smile on their faces. They felt that she was exceptionally cute. If you can't bite it, don't bite it anymore. In the future, I will nurture a pet to play with you. Wuxia pinched her little feet and said, I want to eat, I want to eat. Wah wah wah, I want to eat. However, upon hearing Wuxia's words, Hua glared at her feet and shouted loudly. As she shouted, she gritted her teeth. Seeing that she couldn't move her teeth, tears flowed out of her eyes. Little beauty, don't be so naughty. This is a pet egg of a demigod. You can't eat it. The girl who spoke at the beginning said to Hua with a smile on her face. However, her expression soon turned stiff. Everyone around her widened their eyes and looked at her in disbelief. Okay, if you want to eat, I'll give it to you. The young man below the girl said helplessly. He reached out his hand to take the pet egg and directly cut a hole in it. Instantly, the liquid similar to an egg was revealed, but the liquid was bright green. A strong life force spread out in the surroundings. Take it and drink. The young man handed the pet egg to the girl again. I don't want to drink, I want to eat. The little girl said as she took the pet egg and poured it into her little mouth. Some liquid flowed onto her little face. It's not good, it's not good. After taking a sip, the little girl shouted with a bitter face and kept kicking her legs. Little grandaunt, you're really hard to please. Let me roast you and give you a taste. Under everyone's gaze, the young man moved his palm, and a wisp of flame wrapped around the pet egg. Soon, a tempting fragrance came from the pet egg. At this moment, everyone was stunned. A demigod tier 1 pet egg. A demigod tier 1 pet egg that made people crazy, was roasted just like that. And it was roasted. Just because his daughter said that she wanted the pet egg, the mysterious rich young man directly bought it. When everyone thought that the rich god wanted to bring this demigod level 1 pet to accompany his daughter to grow up together. In the end, the little girl wanted to eat the pet egg. Then, to everyone's surprise, the rich god directly broke the pet egg. The little girl picked it up and drank it. After it didn't taste good, she now roasted it. This. A fragrance came over, and everyone stared blankly. It smells so good. You and elder sister can split it in half. Alright, let's go. The father and daughter's conversation rang out once more, and soon after, they saw the young man hand over an interspatial ring to the old man from the god pet group, before turning around and leaving. Hee hee. The girl's cheerful voice rang out, and she hugged the boiled pet egg with both hands, happily eating it. The group's departure left everyone with an indifferent back view. Gulp. This. Oh my god, I ate it. The demigod-level pet egg was eaten directly. Am I hallucinating? The demigod-level pet egg, the pet egg that caused everyone to go crazy, was actually eaten by someone. Oh my god. Is this a motherfucker who dotes on his daughter? To buy a demigod-level pet egg and eat it? 300 million high-grade spirit stones? Even the powerhouses of the Lingxiao treasured palace can't do that. When everyone saw them leave, the surroundings instantly erupted into an uproar. They all widened their eyes and let out exclamations one after another. This was a pet egg that caused even large corporations to compete for it. Buying it just to give it to their daughter to eat. This was too unbelievable. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they definitely wouldn't believe that there would be such a person in the world. What kind of tycoon could do such a thing? They stared blankly at their father, who was riding on a peeing neck, until he disappeared. Below them, Jin Yue's body was trembling slightly. In terms of wealth, his spirit vein group could definitely be ranked in the top 50 in the entire East, not to mention the top 20. He was the great young master of the spirit vein group. He had tried his best to buy the pet egg, but it had been bought by another person and given to his daughter to eat. What kind of fucking rich second generation am I? The food that girl ate could make me work hard for a long time. Jin Yue's expression changed drastically. With a dark expression, he immediately entered the supercar and left. God-level tycoon, a real God-level tycoon. A young man took out 300 million upper-grade spirit stones with a wave of his hand and bought a demigod-level first-grade pet egg for his daughter to eat. This incident was destined to cause a huge sensation. It was bound to cause everyone to be dumbstruck. The mysterious tycoon, Wang Xian, and the rest flew towards the direction of Jiang City. Yao Nu, who was following by the side, also followed behind with a face full of shock. Even though she had witnessed the horror of this group of people, she was still extremely shocked when she saw them casually buying a pet egg to eat with 300 million upper-grade spirit stones. Who are they? Oh right, I think that swordsman once said 2 words, Dragon Palace. Chapter 1837. 1837. The former king of 1837, the king of Jiang City. Dragon Palace. Yao Nu, who was following Wang Xian and the rest, was thinking about the name Dragon Palace. However, as she was only in her 20s, she didn't remember the name Dragon Palace. She didn't know what this name meant in the past. Many of the younger generation on Earth didn't know the names Dragon Palace and Dragon King. After all, the changes of this era were too fast. Dragon King, the river city is in front of us. However, the river city has become much bigger. 6 years ago, an ancient land appeared in the river city. This is a dilapidated ancient land. It is not very complete, and there are not many treasures in it. It is not valued by other forces. However, at that time, a woman from a small family in the Song family of the river city obtained an opportunity in the ancient land. Now, that woman from the Song family has the strength of a 7th-level void interpretation. Now the Song family is the most respected in the entire Jiang City. The Song family group is also a somewhat famous group. The chairman, Song Hanyu, is also that lady. She is also somewhat famous in the same generation. After entering the area of Jiang City, the 2 draconids introduced Wang Xian respectfully. Oh, what about Mo Qinglong's current strength? Upon hearing the words of the 2 draconids, Wang Xian was slightly surprised. Dragon King, the leader's current strength is at level 5 of the see-through realm. Our Dragon Gate has offended many people in the past. After the gods descended, the leader ordered us to keep a low profile to prevent others from taking revenge on us. Nowadays, opportunities are far greater than our previous strength. If a child can obtain a huge opportunity, he can also become a see-through realm powerhouse very quickly. The 2 draconids said with a slightly bitter tone. The once invincible Dragon Gate had completely lost its former might after the Earth's metamorphosis. Even if they were talking about the Dragon Gate now, some of the older generation would have to think about it for a while. How are the disciples of the Dragon Gate now? Wang Xian continued to ask. Overall, they are not bad. After all, Dragon King, You have great prestige in Jiang City. Even after the Song family rose to prominence, they are good to the Dragon Gate, the Qin family, the Shui family, the Wei family, the Zhang family, the Guan family, and the Lan family. The two draconids replied. The Guan family and the Lan family were the family of Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue. As for the Wei family and the Zhang family, they were the family of his hometown uncle Zhang. The Wei family was the family that Sister Li had married into. That's good. Wang Xian nodded. No matter how the earth changed, as long as his family and old friends were around, it was enough. Since he was back, he could protect them. Do you still have the old seaside villa? Let's find a place. Wang Xian said to them directly. Dragon King, the changes in your old villa are gone. Let's go to the leader. The two draconids said as they led them along. The sea had changed. The old river city had already undergone huge changes. Near the seaside, an ancient land appeared. The ancient land had an area of about 100 kilometers. Because it was a dilapidated ancient land, there were very few arrays inside. There were no demonic beasts or anything like that. Therefore, this ancient land became the most prosperous place. In the center of the ancient land, a tall building stood up. On it were the words Song Clan Group. Currently, the Song Clan Group was the most powerful one in the vicinity of Jiang City. After the gods descended, those glorious clans that had once had a relationship with the Dragon King retreated into Jiang City. Now they were on their way to decline. Even Jiang City was ruled by the Song family group. In just a dozen years, the changes were too great. Dragon King, over here. The two draconids landed on the ground. Jiang City was more beautiful than before, with towering trees and luxuriant foliage. There was less concrete in the big city and more nature. With the recovery of spiritual essence, the whole city was dozens of times more beautiful than before. There's a small villa in front where the leader lives. After the Dragon Gate is disbanded, we will gather once every few months. The two of them smiled as they spoke. Compared to the cold disciples of the Dragon Gate in the past, they were much more humane. Let's go in. Wang Xian looked at the villa in front of him. It was located beside a river, and was considered luxurious. Life was pretty good. He swept his gaze and saw 4 people inside the villa. One was a young man, and the other was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man and the old man were Mo Qinglong and his disciple, Mo Yuan. Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan were chatting in the room. When Wang Xian stepped into the door of the villa, their figures froze instantly. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Oh, what's wrong, Elder Mo? Look, about taking Xiaoji as a disciple? The elder sitting opposite Mo Qinglong was slightly stunned. He looked at the two of them with a puzzled expression, and pointed at the young man standing beside him. The young man had a proud expression on his face. He held a sharp sword in his hand, and exuded a lazy aura. Hua! However, just as the old man finished speaking, Mo Qinglong and Mo Sha stood up excitedly. They did not walk out excitedly. Oh! Seeing the two of them walk out directly, the old man in the room was slightly stunned. He slowly frowned. Oh, grandfather, they are not giving face to our Song family. I took him as my master because I gave him face. Our Song family has treated them well. If sister didn't say that she wanted to find me a powerhouse from the Lingxiao treasured palace as my master, I wouldn't have. Alright, Xiaoji, don't be rude. In the future, be more respectful in front of Elder Mo. As the youth spoke, the elder beside him interrupted the youth's words. Seeing that Mo Qinglong and his disciple had lost their composure and were walking out, the elder hesitated for a moment before following behind them. He was very curious about who could make them lose their composure like this. After all, they used to be that man's subordinates. Even if he died, he left an indelible impression on many of the older generation in River City. He was once the king of River City. In addition, Mo Qinglong and the others had such powerful strength without any opportunities, so he still had a trace of respect in his heart. Tisk! Seeing his grandfather follow him out, the youth curled his lips in disdain and walked out. He's here, our king is finally here. Mo Qinglong and Mo Sha walked out mumbling. After walking around a garden, he immediately saw a familiar figure. Although their Dragon King's form was a little strange, with a girl in his arms and a girl riding on his neck. But this was their king. "Greetings, Dragon King. Greetings, Dragon King." The two of them sped up and kneeled in front of them, shouting excitedly, "Greetings, Dragon King." At the back, the old man who had followed them out of the garden heard the words of Mo Qinglong and Mo Sha, and his body shook violently. He slightly widened his eyes and looked at the young man walking in the middle. When he saw that face, his head roared. It was really the Dragon King, the once invincible Dragon King. Chapter 1838. 1838. The former king of 1838, the king of Jiang City. The Dragon King was still alive. The Dragon King was still alive. Back when the sea god destroyed the Dragon Palace with one move, the Dragon King was still alive. The old man stood there, staring at that figure with shock. Even after more than 10 years, that figure's face didn't change at all. The former king of Jiang City. The king who made all the aristocratic families submit to him. He vaguely remembered that back then, the Song family, and the him at that time, all needed to look up to this figure. Who? The old man's breathing was slightly hurried. What are Elder Mo and the others doing? Why are they kneeling down to that young man this? At this moment, the young man's voice sounded beside him. That's the Dragon King, the former king of Jiang City. The old man sighed slightly, his eyes shining. What Dragon King? What king of Jiang City? Grandfather, our song group is the king of Jiang City now. The young master looked at his grandfather and said directly with some doubt. His gaze swept over the young man in front of him. A girl was riding on his neck. The former king. Bullshit. When the old man heard his grandson's words, his expression changed slightly. He looked hesitant. Get up. At the front, Wang Xian looked at Mo Qinglong and Mo Yuan. A faint smile appeared on his face. Dragon King, you're finally back. Mo Qinglong stood up with tears streaming down his face. You're already so old. Why are you still crying? Wang Xian smiled and reached out to carry the flower on his head down. No, Daddy. The little one was still reluctant and struggled. All right. Let this big sister carry you for a while. Wang Xian pinched her face and gestured to the veiled lady. Yes, sir. Flower, come and let this big sister carry you. The lady was a little nervous and quickly reached out her hand to hug Hua. No, Daddy, wah. The little one held tightly onto Wang Xian's arm, unwilling to leave her embrace. When Kaier saw this, she also held her tightly. You two little ones, you can't let me hug you all the time. Wang Xian said to them helplessly. Daddy smells good. Kaier, who had always been quiet and ladylike, said in a tender voice. Smells good. Wang Xian was slightly taken aback. Following that, he had a slight understanding in his heart. The two little brats were obviously of the wood attribute. He had the ancestral tree in his body, which had a fatal attraction to them. This was also one of the reasons why the two little brats had called her father the moment they woke up. Wang Xian's heart skipped a beat. The god-striking branch appeared in his hand. An emerald green light flashed past. Grab it, Wang Xian said to the two little ones. Buzz. When the god-striking branch appeared, the two-star grass above the little ones' heads trembled visibly. Daddy hug. The two little ones clearly felt a familiar aura from the god-striking branch. They immediately stretched out their hands to grab it. However, Kaier was still looking at Wang Xian with her watery eyes. Let me give you a hug first. Wang Xian gestured to Yao Nu, who immediately spread out her arms to hug him. Although the two little guys were very reluctant, they still reluctantly left Wang Xian's embrace. Phew! He heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Mo Qinglong and the rest. Let's go, let's enter the house. It's the Dragon King. Dragon King, are these two little princesses? Mo Qinglong stood up excitedly and asked the two little fellows. You can say that. Wang Xian nodded his head. At the front, the old man was a little nervous when he saw the Dragon King walking over. Dragon King. After hesitating for a moment, the old man cupped his hands and shouted. This made the young master at the side look at his grandfather in astonishment. Grandfather, The young man was about to say something when he was glared at by the old man. He immediately shut his mouth. This made the young master even more displeased. Who was this young man to make his grandfather so reserved? In the entire Jiang city, who would dare to make his grandfather behave like this? Dragon King, this is Elder Song from the Song group. He takes great care of us. Mo Qinglong immediately introduced him to Wang Xian. Oh, I heard from Mo 15 and the rest. Let's go in. Wang Xian looked at Elder Song, nodded his head, and walked straight in. So cocky. When the young man saw how Wang Xian behaved, he frowned and a look of displeasure flashed across his eyes. Don't speak. Elder Song whispered to him, and followed behind him hesitantly. He didn't know if the current Dragon King was still the former Dragon King. After all, the current strength of the Song family wasn't weak. They were publicly acknowledged as the overlord of Jiang City. But at least on the surface, Elder Song still respected the Dragon King. Just by relying on the strength of the former Dragon Gate, it was still worthy of respect. The group walked into the villa. Wang Xian sat on the sofa in the middle. He looked at Yao Nu and ordered her to hug Huar and Kaier to sit at the side. The young man beside Elder Song frowned slightly when he saw Wang Xian walking in and sitting on the sofa in the middle. The displeasure on his face was even more obvious. Azure Dragon, I'm back this time. I won't be leaving for the time being. Find me a house by the sea. Also, Wang Xian sat down and spoke to Mo Azure Dragon and the rest who were standing in front of him without sitting down. Senior Mo, my grandfather wants me to acknowledge you as my master. What do you think about this, Senior Mo? If you agree, our Song family will hold a ceremony to acknowledge you as our master another day. If you don't agree, don't waste our time here. I Song Shanji don't really care. At this moment, a voice interrupted Wang Xian and spoke directly to Mo Qinglong. Xiaoji, stop talking. Elder Song frowned slightly and shouted when he saw his grandson talking impatiently. However, he didn't blame him too much. The Dragon King was only the former Wang Xian. Now the Song family was. Moreover, the Dragon King who was carrying the two little kids felt that he was no longer as sharp and domineering as before. That imposing manner that made people submit to him was gone. He had a feeling that even if the Dragon King was still alive, he would still fall. Grandpa, can our Song family still not speak in Jiang City? I don't know who the Dragon King is. Nor do I know who the former king of Jiang City was. In the current Jiang City, our Song family is the king. Song Shanji looked at Wang Xian with contempt. He raised his head slightly and had an arrogant expression on his face. In Jiang City, he Song Shanji had the right and ability to say such words. Kid, I don't care who you are. In the future, when you speak to my grandfather and me, you'd better be more respectful. Don't you know whose territory this is? He stood and looked down at Wang Xian who was sitting there. He extended his finger and pointed at him. Wang Xian looked down at the young man who was pointing at him. A smile appeared on his face. Mo Qinglong and Mo Sha, who were at the side, had a slight change in their expressions. A murderous aura instantly burst out from their bodies. The former king, the current king? Wang Xian waved his hand and asked Mo Qinglong and the rest to withdraw their aura. On account of your Song family's meritorious service, on account of your ignorance, I'll spare your life. Chapter 1839. 1839. The former king of 1839, the king of Jiang City. On account of our Song family's meritorious service, on account of my ignorance, please spare my life. Ha ha ha, arrogant, really arrogant. Spare my life. In the entire Jiang City, with my sister around, who would dare to touch me, Song Shanji? Kid, you are really arrogant. Do you really think you are the king? Ha ha ha. When Song Shanji heard Wang Xian's words, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. The funniest sentence he heard today was to spare his life. Her sister was someone who had dealings with the elite disciples of the Lingxiao treasure palace. Now what bullshit Dragon King dared to say that he would spare his life? Elder Song, who was standing at the side, immediately frowned when he heard his grandson's words. Dragon King, this little grandson of mine is young and ignorant. Elder Song immediately said apologetically. But before he could finish speaking, before the smile on Song Shanji's face disappeared, Elder Song, as well as Song Shanji's grandfather and grandson, sensed that something was wrong with the atmosphere. A vast and mighty pressure that even made him tremble came over. Elder Song's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly looked at the Dragon King. He saw the Dragon King looking at the two of them calmly. At this moment, the sound of someone vomiting blood could be heard from the side. He quickly turned his head to look at his grandson. You this. At this moment, Song Shanji's face was extremely pale. There was not a trace of blood on his face. He was spitting out blood and was filled with fear. He stared at Wang Xian, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Dragon King, please. Elder Song hurriedly stood in front of his grandson. Bang! At this moment, Song Shanji fell heavily to the ground. No, Dragon King, you actually killed my grandson. Elder Song saw his grandson lying on the ground and roared angrily. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt an incomparably terrifying force pressing down on his body. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. A powerless, insignificant and ant-like feeling surged into his mind. This caused Elder Song's face to be filled with astonishment. Although he wasn't as strong as his granddaughter, he was still the second strongest member of the Song family. He was at the third level of the Void Interpretation realm, which was ranked in the top 10 in Jiang City. In front of the Dragon King, he felt like he was an ant. Even if he met a demigod expert from the Lingxiao Treasure Palace, the divine son he met did not have such a terrifying aura. Vast and invincible. He collapsed on the ground, a look of despair on his face. The Dragon King, who had disappeared for more than 10 years, was actually so terrifying. The former king had returned. Huff, huff, huff. Just when he thought he was going to die, the pressure on his body disappeared instantly. This made the despairing boss Song gasp for breath. Your grandson isn't dead. Don't worry. You should understand my actions. At this moment, the voice of the Dragon King rang in his ears. Old Song's face showed that he had survived a disaster. Thank you, Dragon King. Thank you, Dragon King. He immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Wang Xian. Just now, he was still wondering if the Dragon King was still the same Dragon King as before. However, now, he had a feeling that the current Dragon King was even more terrifying than before. He had a feeling about the vast pressure, and the feeling of being an ant. He was facing a high and mighty god. That's right, a god. He heaved a heavy sigh of relief when he thought of the Dragon King's past behavior. All the elders in Jiang City knew the Dragon King's temper. If you don't provoke me, I won't provoke you. If you owe me a favor, I will naturally repay you with all my strength. Elder Song was somewhat glad at this moment. He was glad that the Song family treated the Dragon King's relatives and friends better. Otherwise, he had no doubt that the entire Song family would be directly destroyed. After feeling the Dragon King's strength, he had no doubt. He calmed his heart and felt the life force of his grandson. He heaved a sigh of relief. Get up. I just came back. There are many things that I don't know. Your Song family has contributed greatly. I will reward you. Wang Xian said directly to Elder Song. It's the Dragon King. It's the Dragon King. Xiaoji is young and insensible. I will definitely teach him a good lesson in the future. Sendai said hurriedly. He didn't dare to stand up. All right, I'll give you a little reward first. You may leave now. Wang Xian waved his hand at them. In an instant, Elder Song felt the scene around him change. When he looked around again, he realized that he had already stood up and appeared outside the villa. Hiss. Elder Song couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Teleportation. This was something that only demigods could do. However, with the strength of a demigod, they could only teleport together with others. However, now, with a casual wave of his hand, He couldn't feel any fluctuations and directly appeared outside. How could a demigod be able to do this kind of spatial transformation with a wave of his hand? The Dragon King is here. The Dragon King is here. Your king is here. Elder Song muttered. Boom. All of a sudden, Elder Song felt a majestic energy churning in his body. He widened his eyes, filled with shock and disbelief. Roar. An awe-inspiring roar came from his body, and the strength he sensed was rapidly increasing. 4th level of the Profound Void Martial Stage, 5th level of the Profound Void Martial Stage, 6th level of the Profound Void Martial Stage. He didn't stop until he reached the peak of the Profound Void Martial Stage. Is this the reward that the Dragon King gave me first? Elder Song's body trembled and his face was flushed red. With a wave of his hand, he reached the peak of the Profound Void Martial Stage. This was too terrifying. All of a sudden, he slowly raised his head and looked at the incomparably vast Ling Xiao Palace in the sky. His eyes sparkled. Who? Elder Song took a deep breath and slowly picked up his grandson who was standing next to him. He looked at the location of the villa. Plop! Elder Song directly knelt on the ground and kowtowed respectfully. Thank you for the reward, Dragon King. He bowed sincerely and slowly stood up. Should we inform the others of the Dragon King's return? No. Without the Dragon King's order, we must not tell anyone. The Dragon King is even more terrifying than before. Elder Song muttered to himself. He felt as if he was worshipping a god. He had a feeling that the current Dragon King was comparable to the god in the sky, who was high up in the palace. This feeling was very strong. Haha, I, Song Qingshi, have made the best choice in my life. Song Qingshi, who was full of smiles, walked towards the Song group in a good mood. Yeah. In the room of the villa, Elder Song and Song Shanji were sent out by Wang Xian with a wave of his hand. Huar, who did not sense the imposing aura, wanted to crawl towards Wang Xian mischievously. Azure Dragon, call the disciples of the Dragon Gate over for a gathering. Wang Xian coiled Huaner's head and said to Imo Qinglong. It's the Dragon King, Dragon King. There are already disciples of the Dragon Gate getting married and having children. Imo Qinglong said with a smile. That's good. Since they are safe and sound, let them be safe and sound in the future. Wang Xian nodded his head. He had no plans to rebuild the Dragon Gate. With the Dragon Palace around, there was no need for the Dragon Gate to exist. Chapter 1840. 1840. In the dusty history of 1840, the disciples of the Dragon Gate once fought for him. Now that he was strong, he naturally had to help his former subordinates. Moreover, helping his former subordinates was a piece of cake for him. Emo Yuan walked out to gather the disciples of the Dragon Gate. Emo Qinglong stood by the side and kept talking to Wang Xian about everything that had happened in the past few years, including the changes on Earth, including some of Wang Xian's family and friends. Sister Li, who got married 14 to 15 years ago, now had a child who was already 13 to 14 years old. Wang Xian's only unnamed disciple was taken in as a disciple of the Ling Xiao Treasured Palace when it had just descended. The former sect Master Ling of the Yellow Heaven Immortal Sect, and the rest were also taken in as disciples of the Ling Xiao Treasured Palace. As Emo Qinglong spoke, he brewed a cup of tea for Wang Xian. Wang Xian sat there quietly and listened. Meanwhile, Yao Nu sat quietly at the side and watched Huar Kai. However, she was extremely shocked. What shocked her was not the other things, but the emerald green branch that Huar Kai was holding. When her hand touched the branch, a vast amount of wood vitality and sharpness was transmitted into her body. She was even certain that as long as she sat cross-legged and cultivated, she would be able to achieve a breakthrough immediately by relying on this branch. If she held on to this branch for a long time, her strength would reach a terrifying level. A subordinate can kill a divine son with a casual blow, kill a demigod expert, and casually buy a demigod-level pet egg for his daughter to eat. An incomparably vast pressure, able to send a person out with a casual wave of his hand. What kind of existence is he? Dragon Palace? Dragon King? Yaonuan's heart was racing when she heard their words. She couldn't think of the names Dragon Palace and Dragon King, even if she racked her brain. She really wanted to use her phone to check, but she didn't dare to do so while sitting here. The mysterious Dragon King in front of her made her feel extremely powerful. Grandpa, what happened to Xiaoji? Didn't you take him to Master Mo? At the same time, in the center of the ancient land was the Song Corporation. Next to the Song Corporation's building, in an extremely luxurious villa. When Elder Song carried his grandson into the villa, a woman walked over. When she saw her grandfather and brother, she was slightly stunned and quickly walked over. It's okay, this kid needs discipline. Elder Song shook his head. He had already checked his grandson's injuries and found that he did not sustain any injuries. However, he might be unconscious for a day or two. Grandfather, who injured Xiaoji? Elder Mo? HMPH, this is too disrespectful to me, Song Hanyu. This time, if Brother Feiyu did not invite the seniors of the Lingxiao Treasure Palace, how could he let Xiaoji take him as his master? Song Hanyu's face was frosty as she spoke, her body emitting the aura of a strong woman. All right, Hanyu, this matter is over. Elder Song shook his head and said in a deep voice, Oh, it's Grandpa. Song Hanyu saw that her grandfather's face was solemn, and she also restrained her aura towards her grandfather. Even if her strength was now stronger than her grandfather's, her heart was still filled with respect and fear. Tomorrow I'll bring you to visit someone. Elder Song looked at his granddaughter, a tall and slim beauty with a good figure and a first-class face. He suddenly had an idea and said, Visit someone. Song Hanyu was slightly surprised, but then she frowned. Grandfather, I'm afraid it won't be possible for the next 2 days. Brother Han Feiyu and a few other powerful disciples of the Lingxiao Treasure Palace are coming over. I'm going to entertain them for the next few days, so I can't leave. Grandpa, I'm going out to welcome them now. You can push the disciples from the Lingxiao Treasure Palace away tomorrow. Come with me to visit someone first. It's settled then. Elder Song pondered for a moment and said in a strong voice as he walked into the villa. Grandpa. Song Hanyu opened her mouth slightly and frowned. She found that her grandpa was a little strange today. In the past, he always talked to her with a tone of discussion. Why was he like this today? However, before she could think too much about it, her phone rang. She looked at the name on it and immediately smiled. She quickly walked out. Master. Master. When Elder Song entered the villa, the servants saw that he was holding Song Shanji and quickly came up to him. Yes, just put Xiaoji in the room. Elder Song was thinking about some problems expressionlessly in his mind. He walked to the chair in the room and sat down. According to our report, heaven and earth are crying, the ocean is mutating, and the downpour is falling without warning. It seems that a god has fallen. According to our reporter from the Myth Channel, we have confirmed a shocking news. The Spirit Sea Palace has disappeared at the bottom of the ocean. Some disciples of the Spirit Sea Palace are kneeling in the sky above the ocean in grief and indignation. Now it is basically confirmed that the sea god has fallen. A god has fallen. This is... A message suddenly appeared on the TV that was turned on in front of him. Elder Song suddenly raised his head and stared at the report on the TV. His expression changed slightly. He immediately took out his phone and opened the forum. The world is shaking. The sea god has been confirmed dead, and the sea god palace has disappeared. The death of a god, the death of the sea god, and the wailing of heaven and earth. Which god killed him? According to speculation, the death of the sea god should not be the work of the other 4 major forces. Could it be that Earth has given birth to an expert who can kill a god? Elder Song read the posts one by one, and after opening them, his expression changed. What a shock! A godly tycoon has appeared at the east gate of the Jade Lake ancient land. He bought a demigod-level pet egg for his daughter, with 300 million high-grade spirit stones. A godly tycoon has appeared out of nowhere. Who exactly is this expert? My daughter said that she wanted a demigod-level pet egg, so she bought it casually. My daughter said that she wanted to eat it, so she cooked it directly with a photo attached. After the death of the sea god, It is suspected that the son of God of the Lingxiao treasure hall has fallen. The mystery of the death of the peerless heaven's favorite, the 9 heavens. Among the countless posts about the death of the sea god, there were 2 more topics that were more eye-catching. Elder Song hesitated for a moment and opened it to take a casual look. However, when he saw the post of the god Tycoon appearing out of nowhere, he took a deep breath after looking at the pictures inside. Although the pictures only had the back and only the back, he could be 100% sure that it was the Dragon King and his group. The sea god fell as soon as the Dragon King appeared. He bought a demigod pet for his daughter to eat with a wave of his hand, and the divine son who died in the Jade Lake ancient land. Was everything a coincidence or? Elder Song pursed his lips and felt his current strength again. His face revealed an excited expression. His body trembled slightly, and he leaned on the chair and exhaled heavily. In his mind, the dust-laden history of the Dragon King was revealed one scene after another, and each scene was clearly replayed. Chapter 1841. 1841 and 1841's long history. Daddy hug, daddy hug. On the top floor of Mo Qinglong's villa, 2 little girls were running towards Wang Xian barefooted. Yao Nu, who was following closely behind them, was holding onto the god-striking twigs in her hands. All right, you're done bathing, right? Go to your rooms and sleep. Call me if you need anything. Wang Xian looked at the 2 little ones who had just showered. He stroked their heads and said to them, "No, daddy hug. Daddy hug." The 2 little ones stretched out their arms reluctantly and looked at him with their big watery eyes. All right. Facing his 2 adorable daughters, Wang Xian's heart was extremely tender. He held them in his arms with one hand and the other. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? Wang Xian sat on the chair and placed them on his lap. When he was done talking to Mo Qinglong, he had brought over quite a lot of food. Unfortunately, the 2 little fellows didn't eat any of it. Eat delicious food. Huar clapped her hands and said as she stomped her feet. All right. I'll show you what's here to eat. Wang Xian took out his interspatial ring and took a look. He had some fruits at the insightful void tier and demigod tier. Other than these, there were also some meat. The meat of the dragons from the supernatural continent was all at the demigod tier and was extremely precious. Eating these foods would bring great benefits to ordinary people. Other than that, he had also obtained a lot of resources and treasures from the Divine Sea Palace. The most precious thing was the Heaven's Marrow water. It was a very viscous liquid that contained a huge amount of energy. To water elemental cultivators, it was a priceless treasure. This Heaven Marrow water weighed more than 10 kilograms and was considered a treasure of the godly state. There were also many other treasures, such as spiritual herbs and fruits. All of you sit here first. Wang Xian poured some Heaven Marrow water for each of them and roasted a piece of dragon meat. Sir, I'll feed the little princess and the rest. Yao Nu, who was standing at the side, walked over and asked respectfully. All right. You feed the flowers. I'll feed Kair. Wang Xian nodded and gave her the food. I want daddy feed. Huar shouted. All right. Wang Xian smiled. There were 2 little girls. One was extremely mischievous while the other was extremely ladylike. The difference in the personalities of these 2 sisters was too huge. Yao Nu held the food and felt the powerful energy fluctuation from it. Her heart was shocked again. Especially the liquid that was emitting a divine light in the cup. She couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. After feeding the 2 little guys, they were soon sleepy. Wang Xian and Yao Nu placed them on the bed. You take care of them in the room. You can use them to cultivate when you have nothing to do. Wang Xian looked at Yao Nu, who was standing at the side, and said to her, Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yao Nu hurriedly called out respectfully. Her eyes were filled with excitement. She didn't expect that the proud daughter of heaven, who was high and mighty, would become like a maid in just one day. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head and walked out. He wasn't worried that the 2 little girls would be in danger. There were 2 star grass protecting their heads. Without the help of the gods, no one could hurt them. Wang Xian went to the living room and opened the computer on the table. The current computer was completely different from the previous one. It was even more high-tech. He opened the forum that Yao Nu had told him about today and browsed through the information on it. When he saw the posts on the forum one by one, a faint smile appeared on his face. In the entire forum, 70% of the posts were about the fall of the sea god, 15% were about the mysterious tycoon, and 15% were about the fall of the son of God. Every post was related to him. He skimmed through the new posts and browsed through the old ones with great interest. It felt like he was reading a novel in the past. While Wang Xian was reading the posts on the forum, Yao Nu did not cultivate immediately in the room inside, even though she had the powerful Zun Shun by her side. At this moment, she took out her phone and searched for a message with a curious expression. Dragon Palace, Dragon King. 2 keywords. When the messages appeared one by one, a surprised expression appeared on her face. Later, a shocked expression slowly appeared on her face. Are these real or fake? Could it be that the memories of some of the people above are real? Her eyes widened slightly, and her eyes were filled with shock. The Earth's metamorphosis. The computer once ushered in a huge revolution, and the computers of the past were abandoned. The computers of today all had information from the recent years. However, there were still some people who had entered the information in the encyclopedia. Among them, there was information about the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King. Some people over the age of 30 or 40 should understand what the word Dragon King means. I finally know why I feel that this name is somewhat familiar. So, the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace, who has been around for more than a decade, is the overlord of Earth, an invincible existence. Yao Nu muttered to herself. Looking at the deeds of the Dragon King, her face was filled with shock and awe. Let's follow him for the time being. Yao Nu gave up on the last thought of escaping. She looked at the flowers on the bed with envy. Following that, her eyes flickered as she stared at the god-beating branches in front of her. A night passed very quickly. Wang Xian spent the entire night reading all kinds of information and didn't sleep. However, early in the morning, many excited figures entered the villa. There were a total of 49 draconids, including the Devil Abyss and the demonic Azure Dragon. Initially, there were 51 draconids, including the demonic Azure Dragon. 2 of them died in the middle. Greetings, Dragon King. When Wang Xian arrived at the villa, the 49 draconids immediately knelt on the ground and shouted loudly. Get up! Wang Xian swept his gaze across them and waved his hand with a smile on his face. A powerful force made them stand up immediately. He sat on the sofa at the side and looked at all the faces. Over the past 10 years, some of them were fathers with a trace of benevolence and vicissitudes on their faces. The strength of the draconids was not very strong. The only ones at the see-through level were the demonic Azure Dragon and the demonic Abyss. The rest of the draconids' disciples were mostly at the level of level 7, to the peak of transcendence. If they were placed on Earth, they would still be considered strong. Only those who had obtained the opportunity were slightly stronger than them. Back then, I used my bloodline to make all of you submit to me. The fact that all of you possess the divine dragon bloodline is unchangeable. However, the strength of my bloodline was too weak back then. It was too weak. This time, I will reward all of you again. As Wang Xian spoke, he waved his arm. Drops of divine dragon bloodline that contained powerful energy flew towards them. At that time, the power of his bloodline was too weak. If the group of draconids were to absorb his bloodline again, their strength would receive a huge boost. This could be considered as the reward that Wang Xian had given the group of draconids for the past 10 years. It would also give them a place to stand. Chapter 1842. 1842. Whose era does this belong to? Thank you, Dragon King. The 49 draconids knelt respectfully in the living room of the villa. Their faces were filled with excitement. Drops of dazzling divine dragon's blood floated in front of them. With Wang Xian's current ability to kill and ignite 3 wisps of divine fire. The power of his bloodline was extremely huge. Moreover, just now, he injected drops of heaven's marrow water and some demigod-level elixirs into his bloodline. This drop of blood contained a power comparable to that of a demigod. Buzz! The 49 draconids knelt on the ground. It was just like how Wuxia had injected his bloodline into them more than 10 years ago. They were slowly absorbing it. Qitian, inject your cultivation experience regarding the darkness attribute into their minds. Wuxia brewed a cup of tea and ordered Ao Qitian, who was beside him. It's the Dragon King. Ao Qitian nodded. With a thought, 49 strands of hair fell on their bodies and fused into one with them. Ao Qitian's hair was not ordinary hair. No matter what, Ao Qitian was a god who could kill a wisp of divine fire. His hair and his understanding of the darkness attribute were comparable to ordinary gods. There were no reserved gifts. Only gods would do this to their own children. Even if it was to their disciples, they might not be unreserved. Boom! 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 When the group of draconids absorbed the divine dragon's blood and Ao Qitian's hair, waves of powerful aura emanated from their bodies. The strength of the extraordinary draconids shook violently. They had reached the insightful void stage directly, and were improving at a terrifying speed. Wuxia sensed the strength of the draconids and stood up. He walked to the kitchen. He took out the dragon meat and fried it briefly. Then he started to taste it casually. Phew! An hour later, the demonic azure dragon was the first to open his eyes. His eyes were filled with excitement. Thank you, Dragon King. He knelt on the ground respectfully and shouted at Wuxia. Wuxia waved his hand and continued to play with his phone. Soon, the draconids woke up one by one. Their bodies were filled with powerful energy. The weakest of them had reached the peak of the see-through void stage, while the demonic azure dragon abyss had reached the demigod stage. Furthermore, they had not completely absorbed the energy. Once they had done so, they would all be able to reach the first level of the demigod stage. The group of draconids revealed an excited look on their faces. Among the heaven's chosen divine sons, 90% of them were not as strong as them. The only ones who could match up to them were the group of powerhouses who had descended from the Lingxiao treasured palace. How many of our brothers are already married and have children? Wuxia looked at the group of happy draconids and asked with a smile on his face. Dragon King, your subordinate. Your subordinate is married and has a boy. Dragon King, your subordinate is also married and has a 7-year-old girl. Dragon King. The Dragon Gate disciples reported respectfully. Bring your loved ones and children over for a gathering when you have time. Let me meet them too. Wuxia said to them. Yes, it's the Dragon King. The group of draconids nodded with a smile. Grandpa, who did you bring me here to visit? The seniors from the Lingxiao Palace are already here. I wanted to bring them here today. While Wuxia was conversing with the group of draconids, Elder Song brought his granddaughter to the entrance of the villa. Song Hanyu frowned and spoke to her grandfather impatiently. She looked a little anxious. You'll know when you arrive. You must be respectful later. Elder Song reminded her again and again. Grandfather, who is it? Song Hanyu frowned. Don't speak. Elder Song waved his hand at her before shouting respectfully into the villa. Dragon King, Song Qingshi from the Song family is here to pay his respects. He took a deep breath and shouted into the villa. Song Hanyu, who was standing at the side, widened her eyes when she saw her grandfather's attitude. Ha! Wuxia, who was in the room, heard the sounds from outside and looked around. Tell them to come back in a few days. Wuxia said to Mo Qinglong. It's the Dragon King. Mo Qinglong nodded and walked out immediately. Elder Song, the Dragon King is not free at the moment. I will inform you in a few days. Mo Qinglong walked out and said to Elder Song when he saw him. It's fine, it's fine. Any time is fine. Elder Song waved his hand. Oh right, Elder Song, if it's convenient, I'll have to trouble you to help me find a villa. It would be best if it's quiet. Mo Qinglong continued to speak to Elder Song. Sure. Leave such a small matter to me. Elder Mo, please send my regards to the Dragon King. Elder Song patted his chest and promised with a smile. Okay. Mo Qinglong nodded with a smile and walked into the villa. At the door, Elder Song's eyes were filled with excitement. It seemed to be a great honor to be able to serve the Dragon King. However, Song Hanyu, who was standing at the side, frowned, her eyes shining. Grandpa, what's going on inside? Hanyu, you go do your own thing first. I'm going to take care of some things. Song Hanyu was about to speak when Elder Song interrupted her, turned around, and left after thinking for a while. Now he was thinking about where to get a luxurious villa for the Dragon King. Grandpa. She opened her mouth slightly and called out. Then she turned around and looked at the villa of the Azure Dragon Demon. She thought for a while and then moved. A purple cloud appeared under her feet and flew toward her own villa. Bang! 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 Bastard! Where's my grandpa? Where's my grandpa? Just as she returned to her room, she heard the sound of something being smashed. Xiaoji! She heard the sound and entered the villa with a frown. When she saw the broken teacup on the ground, she looked at her younger brother. Xiaoji, you're awake. Song Hanyu looked at her younger brother, who had just woken up, and walked over. Sister, you have to avenge me. The Dragon King dared to attack me yesterday. Sister, you have to avenge me. Seeing his sister come in, Song Shanji immediately shouted aggrievedly. His sister had always loved him very much. It was because of his sister that he had his current status. What's wrong, Xiaoji? Yesterday, Grandpa took you to be his disciple. What exactly happened? Tell me and I will avenge you. Song Hanyu stroked his head with an ice-cold expression and said lovingly. Sister, it's that Dragon King. He was the Dragon King of Jiang City. He was the one who attacked me. It's him. Did Grandpa avenge me yesterday? Song Shanji said angrily. Dragon King? Dragon King? Song Hanyu had just heard this name from her grandfather. Now that her brother reminded her again, she felt a little familiar. In her memory, this name existed. She took out her phone and immediately started searching. When she saw the information on it, her expression changed slightly. Sister, I realized that my strength has actually regressed. It's all because of that Dragon King. Sister, you have to avenge me. Song Shanji's angry voice came from the side. No wonder grandfather acted so strangely. However, the Dragon King has already become history. Grandfather is also a little old and muddle-headed. The sky now belongs to our generation. It belongs to the Lingxiao treasured palace. What Dragon King? It has already become the past. Song Hanyu looked at her younger brother and gently stroked his head. Don't worry, Xiaoji. The current Jiang City is the territory of our Song group. As she spoke, she slowly turned off her phone. The Song group was taken down by her. She would tell everyone whose territory this was. Whose era is this? Chapter 1843. 1843 Draconid Fearless 1. Butler Lu, go and investigate that Dragon King for me. Find out all the information about him, and control his every move. In the Song family's villa, Song Hanyu sat on a chair with a dignified expression and asked a middle-aged man in front of her. Miss, where's the master? The middle-aged man stood in front and asked with a slight frown. I will tell him about my grandfather's side. Go. Song Hanyu said expressionlessly. Yes, miss. The middle-aged man nodded and immediately walked out. Sister, he actually dared to attack me. I want to teach him a lesson with my own hands. Song Shanji's eyes flickered with a cold light as she shouted in a low voice. Brother Han Feiyu and the disciples of the Lingxiao treasured palace are here. I will bring you to interact with them for the next few days. This time, let Brother Feiyu see if he can find a master for you. In that case, Xiaoji, you can join the Lingxiao treasure palace. With your talent, you can make a name for yourself by joining the Lingxiao treasure palace. Song Hanyu turned to her brother and said, Sister, is Brother Feiyu here? Let's go find him. Song Shanji's face lit up, and he said quickly, I'm afraid I can't do it today. I've already told Brother Feiyu that I don't have time today. so I can't go over again. Let's go tomorrow. Song Hanyu shook her head. Dragon King. You don't know that 29 and 46, these two guys have a boy and a girl. And they even arranged a baby marriage. What era is this? They even arranged a baby marriage. Haha, at the very least, we already have a wife and a child. What about you guys? You don't even have a girlfriend. Only a lunatic would find a girlfriend. How carefree and free you are now. Haha. In Mo Qinglong's villa, the group of draconids gathered together and chatted happily. Wang Xian also spoke from time to time. This atmosphere made him very happy. You guys are not young anymore. It's time for you to find a girlfriend. Wang Xian smiled and said to a few draconids who were obviously slacking off. Yes, it's the Dragon King. We are not in a hurry now. A few draconids immediately said with a smile. Wang Xian had just told them to relax and not be so restrained. Now that they had chatted for more than an hour, the group of draconids gradually let go. Daddy! Daddy! At this moment, Huar and Kair's voices could be heard from the stairway. Huh! The group of draconids was slightly stunned. They immediately stood up and looked at the two little girls respectfully. No matter what, identity was identity. It was the first time they met the little princess, and they had to kneel down. Come here, come here. Wang Xian raised his head and looked over. A hint of astonishment flashed across his eyes. Compared to yesterday, the flowers in Kair had obviously changed a lot. If they looked like 1-year-olds yesterday, they looked like 2-year-old children now. The two little ones could already walk quickly. Yao Nu, who was at the side, was obviously following behind them in astonishment. She didn't expect that the two children would grow up so quickly in just one night. However, Wang Xian was not too surprised. After all, these two girls could not be treated as ordinary babies. They were the resurrected ancient gods. Daddy! Huar quickened her pace and ran toward Wang Xian with her arms wide open. Greetings, princess. In the hall, the draconids immediately knelt on the ground respectfully. Yeah. Huar, who was running over, was slightly shocked. Rise. However, the little girl was stunned for 2 seconds. She waved her hand and looked extremely familiar with her posture. Huar, who was waving her hand, seemed to have forgotten what she was doing. She continued to spread her arms and pounced on Wang Xian. When he saw Huar's actions earlier, Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. Could it be that my memory is slowly recovering? He was deep in thought. Daddy, daddy, kiss. Huar ran over and immediately kissed Wang Xian's face. Following that, she happily climbed onto Wang Xian's neck. It seemed like she had a soft spot for peeing. Daddy! Kair also trotted over. She spread her arms and begged her cutely for a hug. The two little fellows who looked almost identical looked extremely cute. As he looked at them, some of the things in his mind were thrown to the back of his mind. He carried Kair up dotingly. Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Wang Xian asked them with a smile. I'm not hungry, I'm not hungry. The little fellows on top shook their legs. I want to go out and play. Go out and play. She sat on Wang Xian's neck and hugged his head as she shook it. All right. I'll bring you out later. Wang Xian looked at the clothes on them. Due to the rapid growth, Yao Nu could only condense a green dress with the wood attribute. Although it fit well, it could not be compared to professional clothes. All of you get up. Wang Xian looked at the draconids who were still kneeling and waved his hand. It's the Dragon King. The two little princesses are so beautiful. The group of draconids smiled and nodded. Dragon King, I have some toys for my son. If the little princess doesn't mind, let them play with them. One of the draconids bowed slightly and took out a few small toys with a smile on his face. Daddy, I want to play with them. The extremely mischievous flower immediately stretched out her small hand and shouted. All right, give them to the little princess. The draconid smiled and handed over the toy in his hand. The flower took the toy and immediately giggled. Buzz, 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 buzz. At this moment, the draconid's phone that handed over the toy kept trembling. He frowned slightly and closed it without a trace, but his voice kept ringing. I'm sorry, Dragon King. He bowed and retreated backward. He took out his phone and took a glance. However, his retreating body soon froze. Anger flashed across his body, and his expression changed drastically. Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he saw the change in his subordinate's aura. He took a glance, and the information on his phone fell into his line of sight. This draconid had hung up a lot of calls just now. Now this was the 20th message. What's wrong, Laojiao? Mo Yuan walked over and patted him on the shoulder. He, who had already advanced to the demigod realm, could also sense that something was wrong with Mo Jiao. Mo Jiao, you go and settle the matters at home. I'll bring the two little fellows to the mall to buy some clothes. Bring your family over for a gathering in 2 days. Wang Xian stood up and carried Kyer. There were flowers hanging on his head as he smiled and walked out. Yao Nu hurriedly followed behind him. Ao Jian and Ao Qitian followed as well. That's right. Wang Xian paused after taking a few steps. Although the Dragon Gate has been disbanded, you are still my subordinates. As my subordinates, the people with the divine dragon bloodline, we will not steal, rob, bully, or humiliate anyone. Similarly, we will not fear anyone. On this earth, no one can bully us. Whoever bullies us will be repaid tenfold. Not even the gods. After saying that, he brought the two little fellows out of the villa's door. Chapter 1844. 1844 Draconids are fearless too. A calm voice reverberated throughout the hall of the villa. In the room, the Draconids trembled slightly when they heard Wang Xian's words. Looking at the back view of the two children who were leaving, all the Draconids had a look of awe on their faces. We shall obey the order of the Dragon King. Mo Qinglong took the lead and bowed to Wang Xian's departing figure. As you command, Dragon King. All the Draconids were moved and grateful. Wang Xian's words represented his approval of them. As people with the divine dragon bloodline, they would not steal, rob, bully, or humiliate others. As the rules set by the Dragon King, they would not violate them in the slightest. Mo Jiao, what happened? Mo Qinglong looked at Mo Jiao and asked immediately. Leader, it's not a big deal. I can handle it myself. Because of his own matter, Mo Jiao was a little embarrassed. Lowering his head, he said, It's just that my kid was sparring with a classmate in the academy and injured him. The other party seemed to have some strength and severely injured my kid and sent him to the hospital. This is still a small matter? He actually heavily injured Li. Does he really think that we are easy to bully? Whoever makes a move will be repaid tenfold. Upon hearing his words, a cold expression appeared on Mo Qinglong's face. Fuck, Li, that little fellow's talent is quite good. He actually dared to seriously injure my godson. Come, let's go and kill them. A draconid beside him revealed a stern expression as he coldly shouted. The group of draconids had experienced more than 10 years of fighting side by side, and were already as close as brothers. Now that someone dared to attack their relatives, how could they let them off so easily? There's no need. Now that the Dragon King has increased our strength, I can handle it with my own strength. Mo Jiao shook his head. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 15th, 6th, you guys go with 9th to handle it. If there's any problem, immediately notify us. Mo Qinglong immediately ordered them. It's leader. Go, someone actually dares to bully Happy. Let's go and cripple them. The 4 draconids patted Mo Jiao's shoulder and shouted with icy cold faces. Mo Jiao revealed a trace of a smile on his face and nodded heavily. The group of 5 immediately walked out. Among us, only that brat Mo Jiao married a girl from a neighboring province and had no choice but to settle down there. After this, let him come to River City. This will be more convenient. A draconid saw them leaving and said with a smile. The rest of the draconids nodded in agreement. Do you know the biggest shopping mall in Jiang City? Go buy some clothes for the 2 little guys. After Wang Xian walked out of the villa, he asked Yao Nu who was beside him. I know. The Tianda Group Square is now the most famous square in every city. We can go there. Yao Nu nodded her head. Let's go. I'll bring the 2 of you to buy new clothes. Wang Xian shook the 2 little guys on his body and said with a smile, "New clothes, new clothes." The two little guys were obviously very happy. They looked around with their pure eyes and kept shouting. Tianfeng City was a city that had just been built not long ago. Even if it had just been built, Tianfeng City was much more prosperous than Jiang City. Most importantly, Heavenly Wind City was built on an ancient land. The ancient land was called Heavenly Wind Ancient Land, an area covered by a green gale. In Heavenly Wind City, 5 or 6 powerful groups rose up because of Heavenly Wind Ancient Land. Moreover, a Heaven's Pride was born in Heavenly Wind Ancient Land, known as Heavenly Wind Heaven's Pride. Heavenly Wind Heaven's Pride was ranked 9th among all the Heaven's Pride, and had extremely powerful connections. The area of the Heavenly Wind Ancient Land was about 200 kilometers, while the area of the Heavenly Wind City was about 1,000 kilometers. The entire city was bustling with activity. Ninth brother, which hospital are you happy to be in now? In the sky, 5 draconids were flying towards the Heavenly Wind City at full speed. As they looked at the city below, Imo-san asked him. In the Central Hospital's intensive care unit. Emojio's expression was a little awkward. Although the current hospital had been completely reformed, the intensive care unit still represented that the injuries were extremely serious. Intensive care unit? Looks like Happy's injuries aren't light. Damn it. This time, no matter who the other party is, we have to teach them a lesson. We aren't so easy to bully. The draconids' faces were gloomy as they spoke with ice-cold expressions. We're here. Emojio looked down and immediately landed on the ground. He ran anxiously into the hospital. Brother Gio, you're finally here. Our son, he hasn't left the safe period yet. When they arrived at the ICU on the 13th floor of the hospital, a delicate and pretty woman pounced on them, with a face full of tears as she cried out in grief. Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law. Demon 3, Demon 4. And the others shouted as they looked at Demon 9. Come, let's go in and take a look at Louis. Don't worry, Louis will be fine. Demon 9 patted his wife's shoulder as his gaze turned towards the parents-in-law in front of him. They walked directly towards the serious illness room. With the flourishing of their cultivation, the current serious illness room was no longer as closed as before. Are you the child's father? Your child suffered a heavy blow to the head and a heavy blow to the chest. There are no doctors in our hospital who can treat him, so we can only use pills to keep him alive. If you can't find a strong person to treat him, I'm afraid. A nurse in the intensive care unit was recording the situation as she spoke to Emojio and the others. Let's take a look. When Emojio saw that his breathing was weak and his son's vitality was weak, blue veins popped up on his face. He looked at his brothers and immediately walked over. Everything will be fine. The 4 draconids and Emojio walked over and placed their palms on Lu Yi's body. Damn it, who did this? Sister-in-law, where is the person who hurt him? Mo-15 sensed Happy's injuries, and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He shouted with a vicious tone. It's the Sun family. I went to the school. The school said that the students would spar normally, and were happy to break the other party's arm. In the end, the other party's parents came directly in the afternoon, and were happy to be seriously injured. The school has shares of the Sun family. They said that there's nothing they can do. Let us settle it ourselves. Emojio's wife's parents were honest old men. Their eyes were red, and their faces were full of anger as they spoke. Damn it. Emojio's eyes revealed killing intent. He had seriously injured his son, and nearly killed him. This enmity was irreconcilable. FUCK, what Sun family, old Gio? Let's treat Happy first. We'll go and ask them for an explanation. A few draconids revealed cold expressions in their eyes. If it was before, they might be afraid of a powerful family group. But now, with the increase in strength and the presence of the Dragon King, they weren't afraid at all. We don't provoke people, but if someone bullies us, we'll pay them back tenfold. Draconids aren't afraid. Chapter 1845. 1845 Draconid Fearless 3. Brother Gio, forget it. It's enough as long as Happy is safe. We can't afford to offend the Sun family. When Gio's wife heard her husband and his brother's words, she said anxiously, Little Gio, don't be rash. The most important thing now is to let Happy recover as soon as possible. These damn bastards, we shouldn't provoke them. Gio's wife's parents also spoke with an embarrassed expression and sighed slightly. The Sun family, the Sun Group in the Windy City. Although the Sun Group's influence in the Windy City wasn't ranked among the top few, it wasn't something that ordinary families could compare to. In addition, it was rumored that the Sun family had been ranked in the Windy City group recently, so it wasn't something that they could contend against. Sister-in-law, uncle and aunt, don't worry, leave this matter to us. 15-6, and the others looked at each other, their faces revealing a trace of coldness. We'll treat Happy first. Yes. Gio nodded, and waves of energy were injected into his son's body. If it was in the past, with his extraordinary strength, he wouldn't have been able to do anything to his son's current injuries. But now he could easily treat them. With the help of a few brothers, it wouldn't take long for him to completely heal. In the current academy, even if it was a child sparring, his arm or leg would be easily broken. The school would immediately heal him. The path of cultivation was filled with danger. Even if his arm was cut off, he could still reattach it, not to mention ordinary fractures. This time, his son was nearly beaten to death, causing Gio's heart to be filled with anger. He could not swallow this anger. Oh, you guys actually managed to heal your injuries, what great strength. The nurse at the side saw that Lu Yi's expression was quickly recovering, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. Brother Gio. Gio's wife also approached him with a face full of nervousness. It's all right, Lu Yi's injuries can be healed. Gio consoled his wife. Soon Happy, who was lying on the hospital bed, called out in a low voice and slowly opened his eyes. Daddy! He looked at his father in front of him and called out softly. Daddy, uncle, grandparents. He then looked at the people beside him and called out obediently. All right, I've completely recovered. A smile appeared on San's face as he rubbed Happy's head. Get up. Gio directly carried Happy down from the bed. Little Gio, Happy is just fine. When Gio's parents-in-law saw Happy stand up, they immediately said with heartache. Dad, Mom, it's okay. Happy has completely recovered. Gio said to them. Go, Happy. Who hit you? Today Dad will make him pay tenfold. Gio lowered his head and looked at his son, holding his hand as he said. Brother Gio, you. When Gio's wife heard his words, her face instantly became nervous. Sister-in-law, don't be afraid. Leave it to us. Today, no matter who the other party is, we will pay a heavy price for this matter. 156 said firmly to her. You have a trace of the divine dragon's bloodline. You must remember, the possessor of the divine dragon's bloodline. We will not steal, rob, bully, or humiliate others. But if others bully us, we will definitely let them know the price. Gio lowered his head to look at his son and said firmly. Yes, father. Happy to see his father's gaze, he nodded firmly. Ever since he was sensible, he had heard his father say more than once that he had an extraordinary bloodline. Since young, he had also displayed extraordinary talent in cultivation, and had always been in the lead in the entire academy. He was very proud of this. Let's go. Gio held his son's hand and walked out directly. The corners of the mouths of the 3 devils, 4 devils, and 15-6 devils curled up slightly as they followed closely behind. The expressions of Gio's wife, father-in-law, and mother-in-law changed slightly. Father and mother, don't worry. Brother 9 said a few days ago that the Dragon King has returned. He went to pay his respects to the Dragon King early this morning. Gio's wife's expression changed as she looked at her parents, who were a little pale, and said softly, Dragon King. The 2 of them were slightly shocked. Let's go, we'll follow little 9. The 2 old men immediately followed behind. He was very clear about the Dragon King. Even if they were once ordinary people, they had experienced that era, and had also heard of the legend of the Dragon King. The Sun Group is located in the Eastern District. All the members of the Sun Group live in a row of villas by the river next to the group building. Louis, what's the name of the person who beat you up? The group walked out of the hospital. Mo Sen held his phone in his hand and searched for information one by one. He asked Lei, "Uncle, it was Sun Jiahong's father who beat me up." Lei said weakly, "It's the fourth son of the Sun Group, Sun Hu, who is known as the fourth master of the Sun Group." After Lei finished speaking, Mo San immediately found the information. "Let's go. We can go directly to the Sun Group." "Okay." Mo Jiu nodded, his eyes flashing with a cold luster. The Sun Group was a small group among the large groups in Heavenly Wind City. However, even if it was a small group, it was not something that ordinary people could afford to provoke. The Sun Group had 5 insightful Emptiness Realm experts overseeing it. They made a living by selling some of the resources in Heavenly Wind Ancient Land. 5 insightful Emptiness Realm experts were not considered weak in a city. The Sun Group's building was 40 stories high. It rose from the ground and was extremely magnificent. At the entrance of the group, a middle-aged man in a suit was patrolling, showing the dignity of the group. At this moment, at the front of the group building, 5 middle-aged men and a child were walking toward the building. Behind them, there were 2 old men and a delicate young woman. The group walked into the building and swept their eyes across the area before walking towards the front desk. "Hello, how can I help you?" The beauty at the front desk asked with a smile. "Call Sun Hu over," Mo Jiu said with an ice-cold expression while holding the hand of Happy, who was standing in the middle. "Sorry, you need to make an appointment to see our CEO Sun." The beauty at the front desk was slightly stunned as she said indifferently, "Sun Hu, get out here." However, just as the voice of the beauty behind the counter fell, Mo16, who was at the side, slowly looked up. A voice instantly resounded throughout the entire building. "What are you guys doing? Security." The beauty was slightly stunned as she hurriedly shouted with a gloomy face. Without him shouting, the surrounding middle-aged men in suits ran over and locked onto Mo Jiu and the others with ice-cold faces. At this moment, on the top floor of the building, a middle-aged man with a strong build was sitting in the room. Beside him, a young woman and a 10-year-old child were playing by the side. When the voice came from below, the middle-aged man was slightly stunned. "Hubby, what happened?" A young woman with an internet-famous face raised her head and asked with a frown. "I don't know who's looking for death. I'll go down and take a look." The middle-aged man with a strong back and a strong waist was Sun Hu, known as Sun Siyi. He walked out with a gloomy face. "Hubby, we'll go with you." Chapter 1846. 1846 Draconid Fearless 4. Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in our Sun Corporation? Inside the Sun Corporation building, security guards dressed in suits ran in and instantly surrounded Mo Jiu and the others. A middle-aged man waved his arm, and a metal rod appeared in his hand. He stared at them coldly. "Dad! Brother Jiu." The expression of his wife, who was happy to be with Mo Jiu, changed slightly. She leaned closer to Mo Jiu. "Leave it to us brothers." Mo San patted Mo Jiu's shoulder and told him to stand still. His gaze swept over the 20-plus security guards around him, and a disdainful expression appeared on his face. "Get Sun Hu to come out." Mo San and the others took a step forward proudly and shouted coldly again. "You're courting death. You actually dare to let our fourth master come out. A bunch of trash, beat him up." The middle-aged man holding the metal rod revealed a cold expression as he gestured to the people beside him. "Our fourth master is also someone you can call him." The group of people instantly held the rod in their hands. Their eyes revealed a ruthless expression as they directly attacked them. In today's world, the strong ruled. As long as you were strong, you could kill anyone. In many cities, there were experts from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace maintaining order. If a massacre occurred, they would act to stop it. However, they would only stop it They would not normally participate in it. Pung! A young man swung his club towards Emo-san. His face did not reveal the slightest fluctuation. He lightly clenched his arm and directly grabbed the young man's arm. Bang bang bang. He lightly waved the arm that was holding the young man. Ah! The sounds of collisions and screams rang out as more than 20 security guards fell to the ground. If Emo-san were to be ruthless, he would be able to easily kill these transcendent-level security guards. Who's calling me? At this moment, a rough voice rang out. The muscular son who walked out of the elevator with a hint of killing intent. Behind him, the young woman was leading a similarly muscular youth. Your son who? Emogyo looked at Sun Hu and narrowed his eyes slightly. Who are you? Sun Hu's cold gaze swept past Emogyo and looked at the security guards who were lying on the ground. Dad, it's that little bastard. Just as he finished speaking, the muscular youth's words sounded behind him. He extended his finger and pointed at Lui, his face filled with ruthlessness. Oh! Sun Hu looked over, his face revealing a trace of surprise. You bastard, you haven't died yet? You've actually recovered so quickly? Sun Hu, a child is sparring at school, but you, an adult, actually made a move and almost killed my son. Emogyo's face revealed a trace of killing intent when he heard his words. A child is a child's business, an adult is an adult's business. You've gone too far. Haha, so you're this dog's father. Why? Did you bring your son here to ask for a beating? Sun Hu looked at Emogyo, his face revealing a disdainful smile. He knew that the child's family that he had beaten was just an ordinary family. Even before the Earth's metamorphosis, with his energy, he could just beat them up. Not to mention now. His son family was not very clean in the past. After the Earth's metamorphosis, they obtained some small opportunities and quickly established themselves in Heavenly Wind City. Not long ago, his little sister was listed in the Heavenly Wind group. This made him even more unscrupulous in Heavenly Wind City. Other than the people from the Ling Xiao Treasured Palace, he did not dare to provoke anyone else in this territory. I'm glad that I almost died in your hands. Next, if you can last 5 seconds in my hands, I'll let bygones be bygones. Emogyo slowly let go of Happy's arm and walked towards Sun Hu. Ha 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 ha, I think you're courting death. Sun Hu revealed a funny expression and could not help but laugh out loud. Fourth brother, what's wrong? At this moment, a group of people walked out of the elevator once again. A middle-aged man who looked similar to him looked over and asked indifferently. Haha, second brother, it's a small matter. If someone wants to die, I'll give them 10%. Sun Hu laughed out loud as if he didn't care at all. As he spoke, he also slowly walked towards Emogyo. I might be a little lenient towards a little thing, but you? He opened his mouth, revealing his dense teeth as he clenched his huge fist. Die for me. You actually dare to come to our Sun group and seek death. As he spoke, he raised his fist and attacked Emogyo, his face filled with ruthlessness. 1. Emogyo looked at the attacking Sun, who with a calm expression as he lightly counted. Pung! Ah! When Sun Hu's fist came to Emogyo's side, he lightly clenched it, and his arm shook. The sound of bones breaking instantly sounded. Go and die! Feeling the immense pain on his arm, Sun Hu's expression changed drastically. He knew that he had encountered an expert. Boom! His body shook, and the pressure of an insightful emptiness realm expert rushed out in all directions. Behind him, the shadow of a fierce tiger slowly condensed. Divine ability Tiger Roar. He roared, and the 5-meter-long fierce tiger behind him stared at Emogyo coldly. 2. Emogyo's extremely calm voice rang out again. He pulled lightly, and Sun Hu's body rushed toward him, giving him a rib attack. Crack crack crack. The sound of his chest breaking rang out, and the fierce tiger behind him instantly dissipated. Pooh! A large mouthful of blood was spat out from his mouth. 3. At this moment the sound rang out once more. Emogyo lifted his right leg lightly, and it landed on his left leg. Ka ka ka. The sound of his left leg breaking rang out once more. Ah! The incomparably painful screams continued to ring out. Damn it, stop right there. Sun Hu's second brother saw his younger brother's miserable state, and his expression changed drastically. Sun Hu was an expert at the profound void tier, yet he was actually unable to put up any resistance in the other party's hands. He knew that his younger brother had encountered a tough opponent. His figure moved, and a large saber appeared in his hand. He was prepared to make a move. Wang! Right at this moment, an ice-cold gaze locked onto him, causing his expression to change slightly. He turned his head and looked ahead. He saw a middle-aged man staring at him indifferently. Oh no! His expression changed slightly. 4. Ka. Ah! At this moment, the cold sound of bones breaking and screams came from ahead again. Both legs were broken. 5. Ah! The voice continued to ring out. Sun Hu's right arm was directly broken. You bunch of damn bastards, let go of my husband, let go. Behind him, Sun Hu's wife was like a shrew as she ran towards Mo with a ferocious expression. She stretched out her claws, and a poisonous green color appeared on them. I don't teach my parents sins. I don't like to torture women, so. Behind them, Mo15 saw the poison on the shrew's claws, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He waved his arm, and a terrifying demonic aura directly landed on her chest. Pung! Her entire body flew backwards and landed beside their child. Her eyes were wide open, but there was no sound at all. Chapter 1847. 1847 Draconid Fearless 5. Wow, mom, dad. A cry filled with fear rang out. The robust youth looked at his former mother's corpse with a terrified expression on his face. The youth who was a little ferocious earlier was now trembling. What? How dare you? Sun Hu's second brother saw his former sister-in-law's corpse, and his pupils constricted. A shocked expression appeared on his face. 6. Bang crack. Several calm sounds continued to be heard from the area in front, followed by the sound of bones breaking. You guys. At this moment, Sun Hu's face was filled with fear. He glanced to the side and listened to his son's cries. His body began to tremble. 7. Bang. 8. Bang. Sun Hu's body trembled more and more violently. His eyes were filled with despair. At this moment, he couldn't even open his mouth. There wasn't a part of his body that wasn't pink. He could feel that his life force was rapidly disappearing. Looking at the incomparably calm middle-aged man in front of him, he was filled with disbelief. According to his understanding, the kid he beat up was only from an ordinary family. Why did his father have such terrifying strength? If he knew, how could he still dare to beat up that little thing to the point of death? Stop! At this moment, second brother Sun Hu, who was at the back, saw his younger brother who was about to be beaten to death. His face was filled with fury, and he couldn't help but rush over. He held the large saber in his hand and directly slashed towards Mo. You're courting death. At the front, Mo15's figure came to a halt. Sun Hu's second brother flew backwards at an even faster speed. Bang! Their bodies landed on the wall and directly smashed through the wall. They stared at the calm Mo15 with a face full of shock. How is this possible? Your strength. The middle-aged man looked at Mo15 in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. This time, they had met an existence that they could not fight against. Jiao! Poo. At this moment, that cold voice sounded again. He endured the intense pain in his body and looked up. At this moment, his second brother was like a puddle of soft mud. Blood kept spurting out of his mouth. He died before 10 seconds had even passed. Mo's voice sounded once again. He looked at Sun Hu in his hand, and with a casual wave of his hand, he landed in front of the youth. Father! At this moment, the youth had completely collapsed, kneeling on the ground and crying out in pain. Since you are a child, I'll spare your life. Or even now. Mo looked at the youth and said coldly. After saying that, he turned his head and looked at his son. We don't bully others, but if someone bullies us, we will pay them back tenfold. The calm voice in Lu Yi's mind caused his eyes to be filled with worship. Some people really think that we are easy to bully. Let's go. Moc smiled coldly. If the Dragon King had not returned, Even if Lui had not died, he would have suffered injuries and might even have died. 10 times the payback. Killing 2 people was considered light. Back then, the Dragon Queen was seriously injured, and the Dragon King had almost massacred half of the Jianghu. At that time, it was the Draconids who had done it. They had been living a low-key life for more than 10 years, and with their strength, they really could not be high-profile. But now that the Dragon King had returned, they might not be as aggressive as before, but if anyone dared to provoke them, they, the Draconids, naturally wouldn't show any mercy. Although the Dragon Gate was disbanded, the people with the divine dragon bloodline were still there. Is this? They're so strong, so strong. Sun Sai is an expert at the profound void realm, yet he doesn't have the strength to resist at all. He came here and directly killed Sun Sai and left. Who are they? A shocked voice came from the surroundings. The Sun Group's security guards and the front desk staff all had frightened expressions on their faces. Fourth Master Sun was also a figure in Heavenly Wind City. He was killed so easily. Ching go. Emojio once again held his son's hand and held his wife's shoulders as he said gently. He looked at his in-laws and faintly nodded. Go. The 2 old men vented the anger in their hearts and smiled. If you want to take revenge, we will accept it at any time. But if you dare to play some tricks, the next time, we will flatten your Sun Group. Emo-san's gaze swept across the surroundings, and his cold voice entered everyone's ears. You, Sun Xiong, who was slowly standing up from the ground, stood up with an ugly expression. When he saw the corpses on the ground, his expression turned cold. Emojio and his group walked out indifferently. Hua. However, just as they walked out of the entrance of the building, luxurious cars suddenly drove over. The 4 latest Audi models in front could withstand the attacks of experts below the profound void tier. The 3 Rolls-Royces in the center were the latest models that could withstand the attacks of powerhouses below the void interpretation stage level 5. The Rolls-Royce in the center was a 15-meter-long extended version. At the back, there were Audi cars that were exactly the same as the first 4. Luxury cars, real luxury cars. Even if they were placed on Earth today, they were still luxury cars that only the rich could afford. The car stopped. Bodyguards in black suits walked out of the Audi in front of them. They quickly ran to open the doors of the Rolls-Royce. An old man with a walking stick with a dragon head walked out. The old man walked to the Rolls-Royce in the center and greeted the middle-aged men inside with slight respect. The middle-aged men walked down with smiles on their faces. The group of them walked towards the Sun Corporation. The old man with a walking stick was slightly surprised when he saw Emojio and the others walking out. His eyes looked towards the building. This bunch of brats, why aren't they coming out to welcome us? The old man looked towards the direction of the building. When he saw that his sons didn't come out to welcome them, his face revealed anger, and he shouted with full confidence. Father! At this moment Sun Xiong, who was standing in the building with an embarrassed expression, changed his expression and hurriedly walked out. Father, fourth brother was killed. Fourth brother was killed by them. Sun Xiong's entire body was in an extremely miserable state. There was a pool of blood that was spat out from his chest as he roared angrily. What? The old man who was laughing and chatting with the middle-aged men beside him changed his expression when he heard the voice coming from the building. He looked over and saw his second son who was in a sorry state. His gaze then turned towards the center of the building. In an instant his eyes turned red. The most painful thing for a person was no different from sending someone else off. Oh! The people beside the old man also frowned slightly. They killed him. Suppressing his violent anger, the old man holding the dragon-headed walking stick pointed at Emojio and the others who were walking outside. It's father, it's them, they are very powerful. Sun Xiong immediately replied loudly. They dare to kill my son Ritian's son. I will exterminate his entire clan. Surround them. A furious voice filled with killing intent sounded from Sun Xiong's mouth. Chapter 1848. 1848. A single hair and a sword. At the entrance of the Sun Corporation building. When one luxurious car after another drove over here, they had already attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Emogio and the others walked out indifferently. You dare to kill my son Lai Tian's son, I will exterminate his entire clan. Surround them. When Sun Lai Tian's violent voice sounded, the surrounding people revealed shocked expressions. Brother Jiao. Little Jiao. Emogio's wife and parents-in-law's eyes revealed fear when they heard this. They looked at him worriedly. You don't know life from death. Leave it to us. Emo-san and the others revealed killing intent in their eyes. Surround them. Hua hua hua. At this moment, the surrounding bodyguards in black suits surrounded them. Their bodies emitted a powerful aura. Of course, this power was only seen by ordinary people on Earth. A group of transcendent level 8, 9, and peak experts surrounded them in the center. Emo-san and the others swept their gaze across the group, revealing contemptuous expressions. Brother Zhou, everyone is sorry. I have to settle some matters first. Sun Lai Tian's arm trembled as he held onto the dragon-headed walking stick. His eyes were slightly red as he spoke to the others, and he slowly turned around. His slightly red eyes were filled with killing intent. Father, their strength is very strong. It should be above the 7th or 8th level of the profound void martial stage, or even higher. Sun Xiong came to his father's side, and said in a low voice with an embarrassed and solemn expression. Above the 7th or 8th level of the profound void martial stage. Sun Lai Tian's body trembled, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. The violent aura just now had decreased rapidly. If it really was above the 7th or 8th level of the profound void tier, then it was completely not something their Sun group could deal with. Wanting to take revenge was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. How could Xiaohu provoke such an existence? I thought you were strong. Since you dare to say such arrogant words, I'll give you all 5 seconds to step aside. Otherwise, all of you will die. Right at this moment, Emo-san's voice sounded, and waves of powerful aura were emitted from his body. The powerful pressure caused the expressions of the surrounding bodyguards to change drastically, revealing a terrified expression. Emo-san swept his gaze across all of them, and his eyes revealed a look of disdain. They had thought that they would be experts, but they were just a few 5th-level profound void tier elders. Want to destroy them? What a joke. I wonder, everyone, what grudge does Sun Lai Tian's son who have with all of you, for you to kill him? Sun Lai Tian's expression changed. When he heard Emo-san's words, his expression darkened. He suppressed the anger in his heart, and asked in a low voice. Hee, that reckless thing almost killed our nephew. We have already given you a way out by not exterminating your entire clan. Don't be ungrateful. Emo-san said coldly to Sun Lai Tian, filled with disdain. He still wanted to exterminate their entire clan. What a joke. Emo-san's strength made Sun Lai Tian's face extremely gloomy. His body trembled as he stared at Emo-san and the others. What happened? It seems that those few people came to the Sun Group building and killed Sun Siyi. What? Sun Siyi was killed? Didn't Elder Sun want to fight them to the death? That group of people seems to be very strong. Look, the bodyguards of the Sun Group are trembling. When the people around saw what happened to the Sun Group, they were shocked and started discussing. In the eyes of ordinary people, the Sun Group was also considered a wealthy family. At the main entrance of the Sun Group, Sun Lai Tian accompanied the middle-aged man who came in. When he saw this scene, he frowned slightly. At least 7th or 8th level of the profound void tier. The Sun Group has encountered an expert. When did these experts appear in our Heavenly Wind City? Should we step out? The middle-aged men whispered to each other. 5 seconds have passed. Aren't you going to step aside? Emo-san looked at the gloomy Sun Lai Tian and lost his patience. He glanced at the surrounding bodyguards and said coldly. Gulp. All the bodyguards felt Emo-san's imposing manner, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. However, they could only clench their fists and stare at them since they didn't hear the order. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Puff, puff, puff. Another 5 seconds passed. This time, a trace of killing intent flashed in Emo-san's eyes as he waved his devil flames around. Ah! Miserable shrieks rang out as more than 10 bodyguards were instantly killed by Emo-san's attacks. Do you really think that we are ants? You can step on us if you want to. Do you really think that we don't have any dignity? Boom! Emo-san's powerful aura directly covered Sun Laition. It was filled with a brutal and violent aura, causing Sun Laition's face to instantly turn pale. What? His expression changed drastically, and a trace of fear flashed through his eyes. Every expert had their dignity, and it wasn't something that a weakling could provoke at will, especially someone like Sun Laition. If he didn't have the strength and still didn't allow others to move aside, he was simply courting death. When everyone around saw this scene, their faces revealed shock. The Sun group today would probably lose face. In-law's brother Zhou. When Sun Laition saw the incomparably powerful Emo-san and the others, his eyes turned blood red. His youngest son had been killed, yet the murderer was still so domineering and disdainful, causing his breathing to become somewhat hurried. He looked at the middle-aged man behind him, clenched his fist, and shouted in a low voice. Brother Sun, even our Heavenly Wind group has to be wary of a 7th or 8th level void interpretation expert. The old man in the middle said slowly with an expressionless face. At least a 7th or 8th level void interpretation expert. If their Tianfeng Corporation wanted to deal with them, they had to be cautious. Moreover, they did not know the other party's background. Brother Zhou, if you are willing to take action, I will give you 8 portions of the things in the Tianfeng ancient land. Sun Laition gritted his teeth and said with a malevolent expression. His Sun clan had found a treasure ground in the Tianfeng ancient land. After the Tianfeng clan found out about it, in order to obtain 3 portions, they agreed to a marriage alliance with the Sun clan and promised many benefits. Taking out this condition made Sun Laition's heart ache. 8 portions. The eyes of the old man in the center shone with a fiery glow as he exchanged glances with the middle-aged men beside him. Uncle, with what we obtained in the Tianfeng ancient land, even a peak of the profound void martial stage can deal with it. It's worth it. Moreover, there's still young Master Tianfeng. The middle-aged men nodded their heads with interest. The old man in the center also nodded his head silently. The Sun family is the in-laws of our Tianfeng group. If someone kills our in-laws, our Tianfeng group cannot sit idly by. I am Zhou Hongyan of the Tianfeng Corporation. Whoever killed the son of our in-laws just now is here to commit suicide. The old man in the center, Zhou Hongyan, slowly walked out and stared at Emo-san and the others as he said proudly. Tianfeng Corporation was the largest corporation in Tianfeng City. Even in the entire East, it was a powerful corporation that could rank in the top 15. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.